All right, we're gonna call the select board meeting to order, the 5:30, whatever, one. First up is public comment. This is for items that are not on the agenda. And just to remind everybody of the rules, you're limited to 2 minutes. One person can speak on a topic. There's no discussion. We can't answer questions, no back and forth. You have to be respectful, not target anyone. Wait to be recognized, state your name for the record. We'll go around the room first with anything, and then we'll go to Zoom for people with their hands up.
This is Board of Liquor Control first and then.
I didn't say I called the liquor board.
Oh.
Order. It might be the liquor board second,
Okay, my apologies.
but we have public comment on there. Why did we public comment on the liquor board?
I don't know, maybe. People just like talking about liquor, right?
For you, but we like seeing this.
22 years of doing this, nobody's commented on a liquor license. I don't know. It's a good question.
Or bra samples.
All right.
No. It's the-
So we did call the select board to order, so. We'll go back and do the liquor board afterwards, unless anybody's here. Usually they don't, it's a procedural thing, so, good, we'll skip it. Anybody have public comment?
I just, last meeting, there were a lot of names brought out of like people who were important to keep the town rolling, you know? So I just want to mention a name that wasn't mentioned, that without our AP department, Kayla and Megan, highway, water, the whole town would have fallen apart and we wouldn't be a town. So I just want to recognize that they deserve up there with everybody else. And just so the town and select board and other municipal employees have it on record that they have done an amazing job keeping us going for the last few years. And we should just recognize that and give them the respect that they deserve, because they're more quiet. They're just quiet about this, so they're awesome, and we should just recognize them.
Did you also state your name for the record?
Oh, I am Amy Berthing. I am a municipal employee and a resident of Randolph. That like people paid in.
Likes to be paid.
Yeah, she's
Them
not my
girls happy.
department, but like all the departments, the whole town would have fallen, like, it would have come to a standstill, so that's it.
Totally agree. Any other comments in the room? None on sign. We'll move forward with the approval of the agenda.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The consent calendar.
Motion to approve. A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, on to the business agenda. We're going to consider appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. I didn't see any in the packet.
Nope, just if you wanted to consider, you'd ask a couple of the planning commission applicants if they wanted to be considered after you interviewed them. DRB and Joe Kills did indicate the email, I think in the conversation, maybe it was Stephanie, that we would like to be considered.
I felt that he was a good candidate for the DRB. Okay, motion to appoint Joe Kill to the DRB.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You have any other?
That's just it for tonight.
Okay.
You'll do, 2 of you won't do, but 2 of you will. Most of the annual appointments, so in March, one of those meetings will have quite a few of these, and then we'll see who shakes out. So once we get through that, we'll know if there are candidates openings for everything. So we're at that annual point almost. Yeah.
Legislative update.
We have both.
We have a built-in record and a new senator. Yeah. And this was just to give some time for you guys to update what's going on, what you're working on, where the town might want to be involved. Let's just start.
I could start by saying that the bill to change the pension plan for our officers. Is moving along. I had originally put in a bill that would have been like a tiny little charter change. Well, would have established a charter actually for Randolph to do so, but the treasurer's office noted that there are a couple of other communities in the state that are basically in the same place we are. I believe they are Bethel and Danville. And so they proposed to, instead of doing a charter, to actually rewrite some of the statute to allow all three towns to participate in G, I think it is. And so we got the language from the treasurer's office and it's been forwarded to the GovOps committee, and I'm expecting that they'll be taking it up in time for a crossover and it'll make its way to the Senate. Well, you'll get a chance to look at
It's
it.
supposed to be brought up for testimony next week.
Do not
No,
know
it is.
if it's on the agenda, is it?
It's supposed to be getting on the
It's
agenda
supposed to
next
be.
week.
Okay, well,
And Trevor and I have both been listed as willing to jump on Zoom if they need
oh, that's right, yeah. I
the
didn't
town
know at the
participation
time
or anything like that.
That it was actually starting to get scheduled, that's great.
Yep.
Yeah, I did check in with the chair today, he did not mention that.
I might have checked in with Randolph's other representative that sits on the committee and I might have been dogging him the last couple of days. So
Yeah,
it's supposed to be on for next week at some point.
yeah, so that's pretty
So
exciting.
jump
That's,
on to help push it through.
yeah, so that's.
Scott's doing 2 thumbs up. I'm gonna make him sit with me if they do invite me, so.
It's only one thumbs up though.
That's
It's a thumb.
by far the most sort of Randolph centric news I would have for you. And then it gets into the whole big world of everything that's going on, which affects all of us in a million ways. I don't actually know where to start. If people have questions, I'd be happy to respond, and perhaps Senator would also be happy to respond, or maybe he has something that he would like to opine upon in the moment.
Like me to,
Sure.
sure. Thank you for inviting me to your meeting. For those of you who don't know me, I'm John Benson. I was appointed to fill Larry Hart's seat here at the end of December. So I came in right in the middle of the session. By background, I spent 48 years just up the road here. I'm a retired civil engineer and was one of the managing partners of Du Bois and King for a number of years. And I spent about a bunch of time right here on the downtown Randolph, saving their downtown from burning down, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So very familiar with the town of Randolph and its infrastructure. As I said, I got appointed here beginning of the middle of the session. Each senator sits on 2 committees, and I was assigned to healthcare and institutions. Healthcare is a gigantic issue that affects all of us. And just as a little background, there was a bill passed last year that looked at trying to reduce some of the healthcare costs. The hospitals, there's 14 hospitals in the state of Vermont. They came in and reported to us on how that's been going. They've been able to reduce their operating costs by $230 million in the last year, and they believe that within the next 2 years, they're going to be able, through efficiencies, reduce operating costs by another $100 million. So they're working hard to look at ways to improve access, maintain quality, but reduce costs. And we have a couple of bills that are in committee, and I expect to be passed out of committee within the next, they have to be within the next 2 weeks to meet crossover. One that continues to build on that, which looks at setting pricing for hospital services based on the Medicare rate, so that hospitals would agree to provide certain services for a set fee, so you would know here's what it's going to cost, and your insurance company would know for different procedures. There's also another bill that's looking at how to deal with primary care. We have a shortage of primary care doctors. And what they're trying to look at is how do we restructure how we pay for primary care so that primary care doctors will want to stay in the field of primary care and also be in rural hospitals as opposed to trying to get into the Burlington or Dartmouth where the pay might be a little better. So it would look at structuring payments on a monthly basis, not on a per service basis, so that there'd be a little more incentive to remain in those practices. But
That would translate into insurance premium
yes,
dropping, which is one of our.
well, at least
variables.
holding steady. I mean, one of the problems for Vermont is our demographics. We have an aging population and we have a small population. And then if you remove out of that, those that are in Medicare, those that are in Medicaid, and those that are in self-insured, like the state, like the teachers are, it leaves a very small pool of individuals or companies that are on the insurance market. And so, as many of you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield almost went under just a couple of years ago and were bailed out by one of their parent companies, and through a little restructuring are solvent at this point. But we're not attracting insurance companies because they look at us, there's not that many to insure. And we're at the higher age range. We don't have the larger, healthy, young population. So they're not attracted to come to Vermont, and that's just a reality. So I won't give any more bad news healthcare wise. The big issues that are being faced in the State House this year, the big word is affordability. And what does affordability really mean? It means taxes to most people. And so you're looking at education. And, if you watch the governor's address, he once again is proposing to take money from the general fund to support the education fund to prevent another double-digit increase in the education cost for this coming year. Now, of course, that will go to the House and we'll see what comes out of that in the education bill. But otherwise, we would be faced with, again, another double-digit increase in education costs this year. Another issue is the transportation fund. And again, money goes from the transportation fund to the education fund, and we rely heavily on the gas tax for funding the transportation needs. And with the improved gas mileage of vehicles, the electric vehicles, the amount of money that's coming into the transportation fund is not even holding steady, it's actually going down. Yet the demand is there and ever increasing. I believe, and you probably know better than I, Trine, but as I recall, we try to pave about 200 miles of state highway every year. Last year, they were able to do about 100, and it doesn't look any better for this year. So we're not catching up, we're actually falling behind. And so trying to figure out how to deal with the ever increasing cost of education is important also to deal with how we maintain funding for our roads, bridges, and other transportation needs. We talked about healthcare. The other is housing, and there's a big push on how do we deal with increasing the housing stock in Vermont, because we have a shortage of housing. There is a bill that's making its way through natural resources that looks at maybe doing some streamlining of some of the permit process as a means of trying to, without sacrificing, major impacts to our environment, but looks to how can we move and get housing starts moving again and getting more affordable housing. In fact, one of the things that we looked at today in institutions is looking at state properties, and do we have some excess state properties, either buildings or land, that may be available for housing. And so those are kind of some of the things that are going on in the State House at the moment. And I don't know from Randolph's perspective, if there's things that you have of concern that you want me to take a look at or be aware of, but certainly don't be afraid to ask.
Well, I think our big one right now is the retirement bill. The issue with that, just for folks that haven't followed it, is Randolph years ago elected to join the state employees retirement system. There was a one-time window. Only 3 towns did, Bethel, Danville, and Randolph. That requires a 30-year work span before you can retire. All the other law enforcement agencies across the state work 20. So that's a huge disincentive when we're trying to hire police officers. They're like, I'm not working another 10 years. The employees have to pay a little more in, but they also can retire 10 years sooner, so. We've worked with the treasurer's office. Trevor happens to have a friend that works in there. We're gonna try to move our law enforcement over into Plan G, which doesn't mean anything to most folks other than there's some other law enforcement folks in that, and it's a 20-year work time, so.
And you said it's going into the House. So it'll be a
Yeah.
House bill that'll come
Yep.
to us in 3-4 weeks.
Exactly.
That sounds good.
Hopefully, and we'll keep you posted of when we get it pried out of government law.
All right.
The state's not worried about it, if there's no dollar value to the state on it. Cause the town and the employee pay in.
Yeah.
So it should be able to fly through by its.
So any other questions for me?
I don't think so, but thanks for coming.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Sidewalk extension presentation.
Andrea is here, and we're gonna pull our presentation and get out of the driver's seat. Yes, the house is ready. If tech issues, holler and try to figure it out.
Right.
You know how I.
Yeah. May have to just,
Okay.
maybe
I'll
old
just
school
scroll.
scroll, yeah.
All right, I'll just scroll.
Stroll rhymes with stroll. It's.
Okay.
Right?
Hi, I'm Andrea Haynes. I am a landscape architect with Du Bois and King. Did not overlap with that gentleman. I knew her, right down the street. So this is, if anyone's not already aware, this is a sidewalk scoping study in the town of Randolph. Our project team included Mark, you saw Bo, V-Trans, John Kaplan from Walk Bike Roll Randolph. And then our team and archaeologist and architectural historian. So the project purpose is to help provide safer pedestrian access to various parts of town for residents. And the 3 study areas, I can go full screen, it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
see.
You need to move the chat or shrink it or do something to it.
Can shrink that.
Yeah.
And let me just do that. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, so the three project areas that we looked at was Weston Street. So we broke that up into two sections, 1A, 1B. The second project area was Park Street from the intersection of Wallace Hill Road to the recreation fields. And then the third area was South Main Street between Gifford Thrift and the Shaws. The whole plaza. So a scoping study is a step in a longer process. So first there's a strategic plan where there's a lot of public input about, what the town wants to do. Then we narrow it down to something like, we want to look at these three areas. And then this is a stepping stone toward a final construction project. To get state funding, you need to do this type of scoping study. And then finally, it can get built. Some of the previous work in looking at pedestrian access in Randolph was a Randolph Walk Bike Roll did a walk audit in fall of 2023. And they got an America Walks grant to put some signs in. And Two Rivers Ottaquiche also did a walk bike master plan that they completed in 2025, which, did inform our work as well. We did do public engagement. So there was a public survey that we had electronically. We also had 2 meetings here to get more feedback. The key takeaways were that people felt somewhat safe walking and biking on Weston Street, quite safe on West Weston Street. And then the number one identified improvement that people said they would like to see was sidewalks. For Park Street and South Main Street, people felt a lot less safe walking or biking in those areas. And again, the most votes were for adding sidewalk. And then we also asked people, what do you think is the priority area? And South Main Street, the big green bar on the right, that was identified as the highest priority for most people, followed by Park Street, and the west side of Weston Street had the lowest priority. So just to take a little closer look at the project areas, this is 1A. So we have from South Main Street down Hale and to Ladd's Auto, which basically right here is the beginning, is like where Ladd's Auto is, where that property starts. So this is 1A, this is the east end of Weston Street. There's a small remnant of existing sidewalk here. We have the Playhouse movie theater here and the Randolph Senior Center down Hale Street. Here's just some photos of the existing conditions of this lack of sidewalk, and here's a little remnant of sidewalk. Not in great shape though. So we looked at 3 alternatives for this section. We looked at the sidewalk running all the way on the south side of the street, meaning you would cross over at Main Street at the theater right here. The next alternative 2 that we looked at was the north side of the street and then having a crosswalk at Hale right here. And then the sidewalk would continue on the south side. Number 3. Uh-oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I talk loud?
Yeah, just go real loud.
Okay. I can talk really loud.
Yeah, it might be on the computer. I'll work on that in a second side for everyone online now.
Okay.
Having
Maybe I should
issues.
stand up. No, I can't see my screen. Alternative 3 starts on the north side, and then a crosswalk is further east, closer to Main Street, and then the sidewalk continues along the south side and down Hale
the owl restarting itself, it's decided, sorry.
Okay, so
Exorcism.
what we identified as the preferred alternative was the third option, which was the north side and then crossing closer to Main Street. The reasons for this is that, number one, it avoided crossing over to the south side was just too many problems, too many issues. Concerns about safety and how fast cars turn. There's a parking lot, there's a 10-foot easement here, so it was just not working out well. So the north side was the better option. And then from public comment, we learned that most people already cross here. And the other advantage of coming to the south side sooner is that, again, we would have, there's a series of garages here, here and here, and then another road. So there'd be this really long stretch where there wouldn't be able to be a raised sidewalk. It would still just be flush. So there'd be more curved sidewalk possible by moving to the south side sooner. And this also could be done in 2 phases. We took that into account in our cost estimating. So we looked at doing from Main Street to Hale Street as 1 phase and then finishing the rest of this section as a 2nd phase. So what that looks like here in our project estimate, you see we have east-west combined for a total of 1.1 million. East only 600,000, and then the west only 500,000. And you can see that cost was not really different for any of the 3 options. So it was really just a matter of what seemed safer, how people are already using the road. So I don't know if anyone wants to make a comment or ask any questions before I move on to the next project area. Okay. Oh, are they still there online? Let's see. Anyone online? No. Okay, good. I don't know how to shrink you now. Nope. Nope.
You just put like a little.
No. Too a little wet.
Sorry, we could just do stop share and then restart it too, probably, that might be.
I can't make this annoying bar go away. I think it's behind there.
If you just minimize the whole Zoom,
Yeah,
right there, yeah, and now you're still sharing your screen.
Okay. All right, so 1B is from Ladd's Auto to the intersection of Thayerbrook, School Street, Railroad, Brook Street, this whole mess. So we do have existing sidewalk on School Street, which crosses to the north side and then wraps up Brook Road. One of the biggest issues here is that the road is very narrow. And then we also have buildings really close to the edge of pavement. Here's just some images of that very complicated intersection. And what we determined, so we looked at trying to improve that intersection just with some crosswalks, and maybe we could add a stop sign. But after talking with V-Trans, they really just were like, this intersection is just all wrong. It is not following the manual.
MUTCD.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the manual on universal traffic control devices, the federal rules on how transportation should be designed. You're not supposed to have a railroad intersecting at an angle. It's supposed to be perpendicular. So the whole thing, they actually recommended to do a full study and consider a redesign of this intersection. And don't try to just slap some crosswalks here. You might actually be making things worse. So our recommendation is actually not to do anything, because of the narrowness of the road, we can't really add a sidewalk. And making any interventions here is just not gonna necessarily improve safety. Okay, so moving on to project area 2, Park Street. So we do have some existing sidewalk, which ends right here at the Wallace Hill Road intersection. Our project area ends right about at the recreation fields. And here are some photos of the existing conditions. There was a little bit of remnant sidewalk on this north side, and there is this crosswalk that's existing. So the three alternatives.
Question,
sorry.
that photo back there, where does that sidewalk land? So just on the hillside there, like right here, like
The bottom left, that is,
There's another general remnant of sidewalk and that continues to the park area. Most of it is grown over and gone, but it does lead to what was a formal sidewalk area.
if you can see that right there, it's bigger on the next. So here's that little bit of crosswalk.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a little remnant, there's little bits along here and just a little bit of sidewalk in there.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. So the three possibilities we looked at was, do we cross to the south side? And, just keep pedestrians on the south side the whole time. Alternative 2 was to continue, from that north side existing sidewalk and then cross closer to the recreation area. And then alternative 3 was to continue this sidewalk on the north side and cross at the existing crosswalk and continue the new sidewalk all the way down the recreation area. And one thing I want to mention is that included in all of these alternatives was a reconfiguration of the Wallace Hill and Park Street intersection, which was already kind of designed and planned as part of the repaving project that is possibly going to happen there. That this just is more in line with correct road alignment and design. So that was embedded in all 3 alternatives, as was this reconfiguration here for better pedestrian safety. Currently, the stop sign at the recreation center is downslope and away from the actual roadway. So in order to pull out, you actually have to pull up to here in order to see cars coming down 12. So we actually have the sidewalk. There's a bump out. We're proposing a bump out added here. So that there's actually a place for pedestrians. Because right now they're just kind of let out into space and there's not any clear path. It's also not really advised to have the driveway and driveway right next to each other without some kind of clarification of what ends where. So that's kind of in all 3. The alternative that was the preferred alternative was number 3, and that is keeping most of the sidewalk on the south side and also keeping the existing crosswalk location. We did some field testing and measuring and site distances, and because of the curve of this road, and because of the speed of cars coming from the west, this is actually the safest location. This is where you have enough stopping distance if you're coming from the east. You come around the curve about here, you can start to see, and then this is adequate stopping distance. And then from this direct, right about here, there's a sign that says 25. So it switches from, I'm not sure if it's 40 or 45, but then the sign just to reduce down to 25 is like about here, which doesn't really give you enough time to slow down if we had the crosswalk here. By the time you see the sign and have time to react and to slow down. So we felt this was the safest location for the crosswalk. And it also connects to the existing sidewalk on the north. And the cost, we also broke this up into 2 phases. So east section, west section. So for a total combined of 500,000, or it could be done in 2 phases, 250 each. Any comments or questions about that project area?
Do you know how many people live in that Wallsville area that the sidewalk would serve?
I do not. No. We didn't really look at demographics. Anecdotally, just when in the time I was out there, I saw bikers and people walking in the road. Okay, so project area 3, the connection from Gifford Thrift to Justin Morgan Plaza. So the existing sidewalk ends right here at Gifford Thrift. We have a little bit of sidewalk in the plaza property, right here on the south side of their driveway. And here are some photos of the conditions. So this is taken from where the existing sidewalk ends, looking north. This is the exit of the plaza. Green Mountain Power on the bottom right here. So the alternatives that we looked at, number 1 is just connecting from the existing sidewalk and then keeping the sidewalk on, or adding sidewalk on the north side of the plaza driveway. There's a bridge that starts about here and a guardrail, and this drops off quite a bit. So in this alternative, the sidewalk is built in the existing shoulder, but would require a retaining wall if it just continued that route to have enough width because the road narrows at that bridge. So alternative 2 is the same design, but shifting the lanes, the existing painting and lanes, shifting it all a little bit to the west so that we could avoid building that retaining wall. And we looked at alternative number 3 was, what if we crossed over to that existing sidewalk on the south side of the driveway? And what we found is that it would just not be safe for pedestrians because it is so long. It's a really long distance you'd have to cross. And because of the size of the trucks that have to go in and out there, we could not narrow it. And it has this similar issue where, because it's a hill, cars need to pull up pretty far in order to see, the traffic. So you'd have to pull up so far that a pedestrian can't walk in front of the car. They'd have to go behind, which definitely not safe, or go way out into the road. Also not safe. So we identified alternative 2, the lane shift, as the preferred alternative. Keeps the pedestrians safer by having them on the north side of the plaza driveway. We do have initial support from Green Mountain Power for there being some encroachment onto their property. And this avoids the expensive retaining wall by shifting the lanes. So you can see here in the cost estimate, it was 2.4 million with the retaining wall of 1.2 million without. And any questions on this one or anything else? Yeah.
Hi, Dustin Adams. I asked this at the last sidewalk meeting, open to the public. I didn't get an answer, and it might be on your spreadsheet. I can't see it too well. But for that 1.2 million, is that including the cost of re-crowning the road? Is that all inclusive, or are we assuming that's going to be in a different project?
I believe it is. We definitely talked about this when we were doing the cost estimate. I believe it does include that.
When you looked at all these different site locations, is the land needed for all these alternatives currently owned by the town? Or are we looking at right of way acquisition and
These should all fit in the existing right of way.
even down Weston Street and some of those where it gets narrow? When you looked at the three alternatives for South Main Street, since that's the one that became the priority, shifting the lanes is on the state road or on the exit from the shopping plaza?
So the lane shift would start, so this line, I believe, is where State Road begins. So it's mostly State Road, it's just like a tiny bit not, like just where you can see that little yellow bit that's north of that line. Mostly State Road.
Did you look at shifting the exit of the plaza over to removing their sidewalk, shifting their lanes over, and then putting the sidewalk on the other side?
Shifting their lanes.
You got 2 lanes and a sidewalk. You need 2 lanes and a sidewalk, but you want the sidewalk on the opposite side. So why not locate the sidewalk on the north side and shift your 2 travel lanes over to where their sidewalk is?
I'm sorry. Could you say that
I
again?
think what she's saying is, so this is the sidewalk that exists, which is kind of,
The green is, yeah.
and so moving these lanes over and
Uh-huh.
taking out that sidewalk there to allow room over here for the new sidewalk that
Oh,
actually makes
you're saying
sense.
get rid of the turn lane.
Well, not get rid of the lane, I think just like.
What you're wanting to put in there is a sidewalk and the travel lanes the way they are now. You have
Yeah.
the travel lanes and the sidewalk. Why not push the travel lanes down and put the sidewalk here?
The configuration of the lanes on the driveway is included in an Act 250 permit. And so our engineers advised us to avoid messing with any of that, including the radiuses.
That would be a minor amendment to, that's nothing to an Act 250 permit. You're looking
Okay.
at a minor amendment because you got the same distance coming out onto the road and the same exact travel patterns. You're just looking at moving it literally the 8 feet or whatever it is.
So you're saying take out the green strip that's above the existing sidewalk?
And the sidewalk, right? So
Oh, I see
you've
what you're
got a
saying.
sidewalk
Get
and you
rid of
got
the
travel lanes, flip them.
I see what you're saying.
It's all in,
Right, it's the same geometry.
you don't have any issue with you don't have to redo the state road, you're not having to do anything. You
Yeah.
sidewalk to where it's safe. And it's all built on, so it's all got the base and everything you need there, you just flip them.
I would also think that the existing sidewalk would become almost a safety issue too, because people would then wanna almost like cross over to that at that like point where all the cars are trying to enter and exit. And so then you would have like people just kind of run, I mean,
Yeah, like,
yeah, because
like,
like,
oh, should I cross there?
yeah, it's kind of weird, you kind of like,
Yeah.
if you came out here and walked here, then all of a sudden like, there's like garages and stuff, and you kind of, I mean, so that's kind of awkward to like get to the shopping plaza there too. Unless like you had to cross here and then across here or something, I don't know, but that would also not be,
Yeah,
that would be private property at that point too, so.
that's all private property, so it would definitely be up to, you know, the plaza ownership. If they'd be interested in doing that, but yeah, I see what you're saying. It's far less intrusive.
It'll be cheaper.
Far
and it
less
gives
work.
It puts your
Yeah.
sidewalk where you want it,
Yeah,
without a retaining wall.
Yeah, definitely want to avoid the retaining wall.
And you don't have to impact the state highway.
Yeah,
So Trini, if you can help me understand, why would that, because it seems like here is the problem up here for the retaining wall right here, it's just like that, it drops off of there,
it's a
right?
little further down.
Oh, so like it'd be down here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Trini would solve the problem there, what she was saying. Okay,
Yeah, we were not recommending, if the options were build the sidewalk basically in shoulder and that would mean we'd have to bump out a little bit where where the existing guardrail is. Right. And then you need a retaining wall. So we're like, well, that's not a good option. And then what we were saying was just shift, just repaint. And well, it does require regrading and recrowning. But yeah. Just shifting that other section would be far less.
Does the state repaving project go that far south? So could some of that regrading and crowning be part of that project?
Yeah, if the timing worked, right, yeah, potentially. Yeah, which was the other reason we were like, well, if that's happening anyway.
Is there an estimate of how many people walk? I mean, I see people walking along the shoulder there, but how many in a
So
day?
folks, you gotta identify yourself for the record when you
David
speak.
Markwood.
Yeah, and we're supposed to be recognizing and whatever. We're gonna be a little lax because the police aren't here tonight, so. Just so they can get it in the minutes, that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
We did not do a traffic study or pedestrian counts or, as part of the study. Okay. So, any other questions or comments?
See any?
So next steps, if the select board would like to officially accept the scoping study, that is a step needs to happen. V-Trans wants to see that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the scoping study itself is a required step in the process of pursuing state funding. And then it is up to the select board to determine if and when you would like to pursue final design and construction. And as we were talking about, coordinating with other construction projects could help with some cost savings.
Before we accept the scoping study though, should we have you look at that other alternative? Of what it would take if we shifted the roads and the sidewalk location?
I would have to, we could potentially do that.
Just so it's in there as an
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, we
So
can,
when the
yeah.
project goes forward, you gotta pick one of the alternatives. If you'd want that in there.
Um,
It doesn't stop the town from just doing something totally different either, but.
true, you are not obligated to do any of these, or you can also do a completely new design. Yeah, we can add that to the report. I don't think we can go back to V-Trans for another round of review, on an additional.
Want that option in there? Those of you that'll have to.
I
be
mean, it
making the
seemed like it
decision.
would save significant amount of money.
And obviously, we would have to talk to, Palmer Lab. Which they did express their support for, the other option of, the options putting the new sidewalk in on the north side. But we never discussed shifting and, removing the south side
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Do this once presumably and not have to think about it again for 20 or 30 years.
Probably a good idea.
You're right.
I think we can look into adding that would be great. And then we can come back to it with a simple change if. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise it looks great, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
All right.
And I'll let you go to drive in.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Act 250 Tier 1A from Two Rivers. Seven was on there.
Hi, and Kyle, so I'm out here in Zoom land and Kyle's there in the room with you. And my head is amazingly large for some reason.
No, we weren't gonna bring it up.
I could see it.
So I think we're gonna
coordinate this.
So I'll begin a little bit while Kyle sets up over there, and just to cover the kind of large thing about that. I see several people in the audience. Can I have a show of hands of people in the audience who are here for this part of the thing? Okay, so at least a couple of people. All right, good. So first off, I'm Kevin Geiger with the Regional Planning Commission, and that's Kyle Katz plugging in his computer with the Regional Planning Commission. And what we're here to talk about tonight is an outcome of something the legislature did last year in Act 181, and that was create an exemption for housing projects under Act 250 in certain circumstances. There is already in place right now a housing exemption for Act 250 for housing projects in basically all of the village of Randolph. And as Kyle gets his computer up, we can show you that map. But there's a big pink bubble around the village of Randolph, and there's a little blue bubble around over on the east side of town as well. The pink one means that somebody can build right now a project of up to 75 units and not trigger Act 250, when usually it would be 10. And over where it's blue, it would be triggering a project of up to 50 units, and it would usually be 10. So, and you have the interim map there. So there's the pink bubble around the current village. So right now, anybody in there, no Act 250 for a housing project up to 75 units. I want to stress that's the Act 250 part of life. And so what we'll be talking about tonight is in Tier 1B is getting rid of Act 250. It doesn't get rid of anything else. It doesn't get rid of access permits. That doesn't get rid of a zoning or a subdivision bylaw or a wastewater thing or whatever the other pieces are out there, all of which potentially constrain things. And it also that the housing projects have to take place on a parcel of 10 acres or less. So in your rural-ish areas, once you get outside your sewer and water areas, if somebody were to try something, getting anywhere near 50 units on a parcel of 10 acres or less starts to become difficult, and it might be much more something like 20 units or whatnot. So just because the number is 50 or 75 right now, don't think it has to be 50 or 75. First point. That's the current exemption. The reason we bring up the current exemption is the world hasn't ended. This exemption's in place right now. There have been at least 2 uses of the current exemption in the region, over in Hartford and in Fairleigh right now to get some projects through, and it's definitely helped them. That is the goal. The goal is to make it easier to do some housing projects in certain places. The Tier 1B would essentially make this permanent. And if Kyle will go back to our future land use area, this is our future land use area and our draft future land use area map, I should say. And it has some different colors on here. And the very dark purple, which is right in the middle of town there. And then the kind of pinkish around that, which is the planned growth area. And then the really light pink of sorts, which is the village area. All of those are potential Tier 1B areas. And then you also have some in other parts of towns, up in Randolph Center and over in East Randolph. You'll see those other areas there. That's the universe of potential Tier 1B areas out there. What you could do, and you can request any of those areas. And the reason we're here is that request actually comes through in the regional plan as we're making it and adopting it. And so we want to know, do you want to be included there or not? You don't have to pick all of them. You could say, we only want East Randolph. We only want Randolph Center. We only want the downtown. But you have to pick an area in its entirety you would pick all of the pink or all of the purple or all the pink and the purple. So you can't kind of chop up things. That said, we have very carefully made this map, but it is not gospel. And so one of the things that comes out of tonight and maybe your next meeting and stuff is you go, well, we really like this map and we want to be a tier 1B, but we also want some other little bit of town added in or taken out. One of the reasons why we did the map the way we did was service areas and roads and existing development and that type of thing. So again, tier 1B would create a permanent housing exemption for Act 250 for projects above 10, because below 10 they don't need Act 250 in your town, and up to 50, including 50. But it doesn't need to be 50. And it is any type of housing. It is not affordable housing. It's not, necessarily big box, could be individual houses. Any type of housing qualifies. And again, your local zoning stays in place. So that can easily limit what can go on in certain places. That's tier 1B. I will talk for just a second about tier 1A, but I have a feeling you're not interested in tier 1A, and I will explain maybe why. Tier 1A removes Act 250 entirely from an area, not just for housing. It's like there's no Act 250 on anything in a box. And your downtown center is really probably the most cognizant place for a tier 1A to take place. There is a lengthy application for a tier 1A. It isn't just us drawing the area and putting it in the map. There's actually a bunch more stuff that the town has to do. And one of the more significant parts is you would take over the permitting for any Act 250 permits that exist in those areas. So those don't go away. You would keep carrying forward as the permitting agency for any existing Act 250s, which you'd have to find, and there's all sorts of stuff that goes on with that. So that's why tier 1A may be less appealing. And we're focused on the tier 1B. So with that said, Kyle's there. He's on site, so it's much easier for him to kind of answer questions and see body language and stuff in the room. So I'm gonna shush and basically leave it over to Kyle.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, let me navigate here.
To zoom in on Elm Street and see how they have that.
Good.
That's where we have the interest in a housing project right now.
And usually the street names come up. They're not appearing right now.
Come up Central Street. We should have Elm Street.
A little bit more.
Okay.
It's in your.
Right there.
There's someone in the stuff. All right. Okay. And then, yeah, the street names were appearing earlier. They are currently not. So I'll have to carry on.
How did you figure out what to color purple and what to leave green?
And you can kind of see a little just based off of the map, but a lot of it is density and parcel size and proximity to areas with infrastructure. A lot of this green, I think this green is actually the well, if I'm not mistaken. And so that falls into more protected area where we're not seeing any new development taking place. So that wouldn't fall into, that planned growth area. It would fall into, well, we know not much will probably happen here. And then as you get further out, you get much larger parcels. Some of them may be conserved or habitat connectors or forest blocks. And, those are indicators that put it into a different future land use area, not into these planned growth or village or downtown centers.
And all the black that's X'd out, that's all the river
It is the hatching, yeah, is river corridor, flood hazard areas. And so essentially that's a trigger for any potential project that would fall in or near that. It would have to meet what's called the infill rule in order to qualify to be in that area. So
On the maps that you gave us, what's the beige color?
beige color. Oh, that is the rural general. And so on this map, it appears as just the aerial imagery. There's no coloring on it. So it's all of this area out here that's low density rural, has more residential, but larger parcel sizes and not much infrastructure or no infrastructure.
A lot of this, the areas that you're saying, you don't have to get an active 50 permit to build housing on, there's no land to build on. You know, the more there are some areas where you could infill, but there's really not a lot there. If we're gonna look at actually increasing housing, and I do believe you've got the Far Hill property, if I understand the property lines right.
That's pink.
That needs to be in there, but when we look at our downtown and whatnot, there's not a lot of land to build housing on. We have to get out towards that Far Hills area and other areas, but you're really limiting, a lot of what's colored is already built on.
That is correct. There's a lot of higher density, especially in the downtown center. We did look at, because part of the regional plan update is looking at housing targets. Every regional plan commission was given a set of housing targets, and then we were tasked with essentially disaggregating those targets into all the towns in the region, and to make sure that a substantial majority of the target for each town could fit within the village centers and planned growth areas, downtown centers, to essentially stay in keeping with the state planning goal of compact centers surrounded by rural countryside. And so we have looked at these areas and checked to make sure that a substantial majority of the housing target could fit. And we found that it can. There is a mix of infill, but there are some larger parcels. And when you take a minimum requirement, minimum density of 5 units per acre, it adds up pretty quick. I'm not remembering the total for Randolph. I think it's 300-ish units.
350, I just checked.
350.
Yeah.
Okay. That's not all within the planned growth areas, the downtown centers. That's in the entire town, because we expect that some of those units will go in the rural areas. That's just, you know, housing goes where it goes. So
Sure, Kyle, I have a question. When we looked at the future land use maps earlier, we were just seeing a Randolph map, and now we have sort of the luxury of also seeing a bit of the Braintree map, which is contiguous. And I noticed that there's a planned growth area right on the border along Woods Cove Bay. Or is it? No, it's very long. Is it?
this is actually a village center. And on this map, it's the same.
Okay.
It kind of looks the same color as a downtown center.
Okay, that's a village center.
It's a village center, yeah.
Okay. So I'm just noticing that there's not a large distance between that area and, you know, the more dense areas in Randolph, and I'm wondering about, you know, I'm sure you must have thought about connecting them. And because it seems like that would be a natural thing to do. I'm just wondering what went into your process to keep them separate like that.
I mean, I can take a stab at that, Kevin. I think because the regional plan has to go through a review process with the land use review board, and part of keeping them separate are those state planning goals of, you know, compact villages and centers surrounded by rural countryside, and also it's smart growth. So like trying to limit sprawl and movement outward. And I think maybe and Kevin, you can fill in if
Yeah.
I'm missing anything, but by extending like a village center out and continuing, it could have the potential for more commercial sprawl.
Right. It would, yeah, connecting the dots would kind of go against that state land use goal of compact settlements surrounded by countryside. The other thing is the Braintree Village Center that we have mapped is probably pushing our luck. We will see how it comes out, but again, Kyle is doing that housing target over in Braintree and looking for compact areas. That is not a historical center. And so we may be we may be swimming against the current when we get up to the state review process on that.
Thanks.
And so again, this is just one of those downtown Randolph with that planned growth and village area. I mean, as Kevin mentioned, you can pick and choose which of those land use areas are included in that tier 1B. But you can also look at Randolph Center. Where am I going? Up here. As potentially going into tier 1B as well. You see, it's a pretty clean level of density all along the main road here. And you've got this is a village center as opposed to a downtown center because it doesn't have level of development and infrastructure that you get with the downtown center, but it does have a village area, which for the future land use purposes is more residential and less commercial. It's more housing focused. It's predominantly has housing. And then the third area is East Randolph, kind of over on Route 14. You can see there's a lot more floodplain in here, but there's significant areas east of Route 14 where they're included in that village center. So that's another possibility for tier 1B.
You have another village to the north of that too, in North Randolph. Not that it needs to be now, but there is another kind of
The
small-
hamlet.
I think that's a hamlet right here. It's identified this point, the blue point on the map. So yeah, at this point, it's not a defined area, but it's noted as a point.
So what is the gold color? The transition piece, what's the difference of that? That doesn't get included, but it's on there as potential.
Yeah.
It talks about not having infrastructure, but that does have infrastructure.
So transition has to, there needs to be the possibility that infrastructure can be extended to those areas if it's not there already.
Water and sewer, right?
Water
It's
and
there.
one or the other, and it's not required to have both. But it tends to be for future land use purposes, it's more of a mix of commercial and residential. It doesn't cleanly fit into the kind of that center core area. And it doesn't cleanly fit into village areas, which are more residential. So it's more of that area often on the fringe of the developed areas that has that mix of commercial, residential, and other uses.
So those are areas that we could look at expanding the pink color into.
But potentially, yeah. Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a potential area. We can't keep it transition and put it in 1B because 1B is by statute only basically the pinky things out there, the pink and purple stuff. But especially like on the south side of the village, if we go down, towards the hospital and down there, that place, it is meant to be an infill area. The statute assumes it's more commercial infilling with residential, but Right now, it's maybe a little more just commercial out there. And again, you might want to bring it down. You might know of a project, your plans might talk about a project where you really say, well, that we want, a more dense residential mixed use area in, in the top edge, not so much out on the industrial park side, maybe, but over on the left-hand side there or something. And so that's the type of thing that certainly, we can talk with you all about and go, okay, here, there, everything. We're trying not to extend them too far because of that compact settlement goal. The other thing is separate from all of the tier stuff. Your designated downtown and your designated villages will be our bounds. And so the designated, I don't know exactly where the designated downtown is, but the purple, the dark purple will become that designated area for the state tax purposes, for those of you who deal with the designation. The same thing in Randolph Center, the same thing over, actually for us over in East Randolph. Yeah, there, that would become the designated center. And those are considerably larger. We are watching other regional commissions go through this ahead of us, and there's definite pushback from the state if we are stretching them out much further than they currently exist as a designated center. So that relates back into how we can draw the maps.
And I'll just add to a lot of these center areas have a walkability component. So if they start to get too leggy and there isn't adequate multimodal transportation infrastructure like walking, biking, et cetera, that can make it not fit well into that center category.
How extensive does that infrastructure have to be? You talking built, or if you had trail and dedicated paved spaces in transition area setting? Or is it more envisioning the defined path, sidewalk?
That's a good question. I think we know more when it goes to the land use review board.
Right. But some of the indications are that if there isn't sidewalk, there's at least planned sidewalk, and the conversation you're just having, obviously is talking about that. It can't be like, oh, we might put a sidewalk there sometime somewhere with some money.
But there's no sidewalk in East Randolph, so I don't think that's the criteria that's holding us back. But it feels like to me, we ought to be painting this with as much as we can and let the land use board tell us no, versus us going in there very conservative and having, we could have got it further. Right, so isn't our first stab at this to be looking at more areas or extending the area if we think there's an opportunity there for housing and development?
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly room to move some of those lines a bit.
I mean, that's part of our purview though, is what do we want as a town? What do we want to have more planned growth area? Do we want to have more opportunities for dense development of different kinds, especially housing? Like, are those things that the town wants? And I think that's part of what we need to figure out. I know I've heard that other communities that are ahead of us, some of them have sort of pointedly not taken on some of this tier status because they've decided that they actually don't want to encourage that kind of development. So I'm not saying that I'm falling on one side or the other. I'm saying that that's part of what we're
The two extremes.
we're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what we're tasked with sort of figuring out.
Could there be a meeting planned for more members of the public that are interested in these lines and how they're done, where we actually have somebody from your office come and we put them up on the board and start drawing according to property lines? It's all of them, like this shading that you have. Is there an opportunity to have a working session where you actually pull this up and we say, well, wait a minute, that parcel and that parcel would make sense to go in, but this one doesn't?
I mean, we have a pretty tight timeline, but Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so first off, Kyle is the person that actually does that, because they don't let me actually make a map, which for good reason. The Our timeline is relatively tight, but just to give you a sense of that, basically in February and in March, we're finalizing the tier stuff because we have to be ready to go to our board in April and May so that we can begin the hearing process to get done by the legislative mandate at the end of the year. However, basically everything is a draft until it's not a draft. And so especially if that could happen in March, I would say, especially on the earlier side of March, that would be nice.
Mhm.
Well, I think there should be an expectation that something like that's gonna happen if you're saying that it's the town's decision, what they want in there and what they don't want in there.
It is
Like,
not the town's, it is not the town's decision. I do
in-
want to be
in
clear
what
about
goes
that.
Forward, like the town
It-
doesn't have a say in what goes forward to the land use board for review.
No, that's his regional map and the regional planning commission will make it. It is the town's decision if you want tier 1B. We can't do that. That has to have a town request if you want tier 1B. But we are making the map with input from our own towns, but it is our final decision on that.
That makes no sense to me, but so you brought this to us tonight. And all you want to know from us is whether we want tier 1A or tier 1B.
That's the big thing, yes.
So what
Because
if we totally disagree with your mapping?
well, that's the second part is the tier 1B for a certain area. And if that was the thing that was holding up versus, well, we just don't want tier 1B regardless, then that's to me the next discussion where to go, oh, well, we would like tier 1B, but would like to, have it over here, over there, that type of stuff.
Okay, so I'm struggling a little bit because I just asked if we could have a work session where we pull this up and we decide where we want it. And you told me it's not our say, it's the region's say.
Correct.
And now you're telling me the town has to decide where we want it and where we don't want it. So I'm not following.
Oh, Kyle, you can, because you've actually done this with some places.
Yeah, I mean, there would have to be a rationale for making these changes. I think like to go back to the point of extending the village area all the way over to Braintree, or making that planned growth or something. It's like we see that as being a conflict when it gets down the road to land use review board because it wouldn't necessarily align with the methodology for creating the future land use areas and the criteria that went into evaluating what land went into each area. So if there are parcels that it's like, hey, there's one town where we saw, oh, this is in current use, but then the land is getting switched out of current use and they're putting housing there and we didn't know. Later, down the road, then okay, we'll switch that to transition so there's not conflict in Act 250 with that land, because the property owner is looking to put housing there. So there in that sense there's a rationale for making that change. And it was something we didn't know about because we weren't privy to that information beforehand. And so, yeah, some of these areas, especially on the edges where, it might not be in the purple, but it's close and there's maybe a project or the land is really suitable and it has access to infrastructure. That's really where we want to know about because then we can make those changes with the map. But it wouldn't be rewriting the map whole cloth, making it twice the size. That wouldn't work.
Yeah, we've made a lot of map changes at municipal or even sometimes talk with individual requests. I just wanted to be clear that just because the town says we want that in does not mean we automatically make that change.
I guess if I was, I guess the positive is by the time this comes back, it won't be me sitting here, but if I was, I would want to know what the map, if town's gonna take on tier 1A and take the responsibility for Act 250 permits that have been issued there already, we ought to have some say in where the lines of the map are, and that responsibility is coming in. And the same thing with tier 1B, if we're going to say, this is the area we want growth, and this is the type of growth we want, we ought to have some say in where those lines are, and not just a polite nod, thanks, we heard you, but we're not putting the line there. But there ought to be a real serious conversation about these parcels of land and what's happening and where they're going and where they should be done.
Oh, I
And-
totally
And
agree
I
with
think
it.
that is gonna take a work session where you can pull it up and we can say, well, that doesn't make any sense that that one's not there, but this one is, and that sort of back and forth conversation. I'm not saying paint the entire town pink, but there ought to be some type of serious discussion about where these are by a bigger group before the town says we're gonna take this on or we're not gonna take this on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And March worked for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be happy to come back and continue the discussion. And, I think also in the meantime, like this map is online. And I think, Kevin, you maybe included it in the memo, a link to it. But we can
Yeah.
certainly share it afterward as well. And the nice thing about it is you can zoom in, you can change. I'm just going to disappear you for a second, Kevin.
Yep.
You can change the imagery to show, what's underneath these areas. It's not perfect because it's still colored, so you don't see everything, but you get a sense for what's there. And you can also pull it up side by side with Google Maps or something just to compare and get a clear image of it. But that would be helpful just so there are some ideas in mind ahead of that. And that can help to generate discussion
And the Kyle, just you can call out like the parcel data is behind the map.
right. So yeah, I mean, if you click on a parcel, you get a lot of that public parcel information from BCGI.
So I was just gonna ask, to make sure I understand you correctly. The big question is, do we want to be do we want to participate in the tiers? Where we would be looking at the possibility of tier 1A and B. It does sound to my ears that B is a lot more likely, like I agree that would be the case. But I think I also heard you say that but the boundary that we would have for that is where we would have the most flexibility in terms of how that would go forward. If we said we want to participate in tier 1B, for instance, we would have a certain amount of flexibility in saying where that area is actually going to be. It's going to be in the dark or the less dark purple colors, but exactly what portion of that we have some flexibility. Is that?
Yeah, yes, I would say so. We're the things that we think of are probably the same things you think of as well. As you get southwest of town, it gets real steep. And so that kind of limits that over there. And then there's floodplains that also limit things. We have the enterprise area, which is the new name for industrial areas that the state has given us. And it's that kind of lavender color there. And then the whole Beanville area down lower and that type of thing. And certainly you might go, oh, well, we you know, our plans, our zoning, our infrastructure, our sidewalk plans, or whatever are, you know, going here. And you may have a project, again, like we've dealt with this with other sites where you go, like I don't know anything about whatever's happening up on Elm, but there may be a project where you go, well, it's important for that to be in the village area. And then we go, okay, does it make sense given what we're doing on 900,000 acres? And because we try to have to be consistent across communities to make sure that works.
I guess one comment I would make is not only do we have to decide like in Randolph Village where what we want to see happen, as we just discussed, but we also have the options for Randolph Center and East Randolph. And I think in terms of getting input from the public, that seems to be like sort of the most critical. My guess would be that most folks would not object to Tier 1B status for Randolph Village, and not as clear on the other places in terms of what the folks who currently reside in those smaller communities would want.
I think some of it depends where those lines are. Okay, so we're back to that whole, can we bring it up on a map and have that conversation with folks about this is the area we're thinking of, this is what it means.
Right.
Is that the right area?
But I just know that when this came up in committee, a lot of the discussion was centered around, you know, in a small community like take East Randolph, you know, and again, tell me guys if I get this wrong at all, but those areas would allow up to 50 units in a single development for any kind of housing. And I know there was definitely some thoughts that 50 units of housing in a single project is a pretty big deal in a community the size of, say, East Randolph, which might only.
I think we've got one that's all permitted that they haven't built a third of them.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, it changes the nature of the area significantly, and that might be exactly what people in that area want, but it might not, and so. That's my 2 cents.
Could I mean, okay. I just wanted to circle back around. Kevin brought this up at the very beginning. But this is, I think, a good way to look at it is it's almost taking those interim Act 250 exemptions that are already in place and saying we want those to continue. So much of this area in downtown Randolph already has those exemptions up. Like anyone could come in and do a large.
The next couple of years, right?
Through the end of this year.
Through the end of this year.
And that's why, you know, our regional plan is going through the adoption process, and Tier 1B is tied to that, and we have to get it adopted before the end of this year.
Do we have the same exemptions for Randolph Center and East Randolph right now?
I think for one, I'm just going back to the exemptions map. So for Randolph Center, no, but East Randolph, there's it says there's likely an exemption eligible for up to 50.
For right now, that's right now.
Right now.
So if there was somebody really chomping at the bit to build a housing development in East Randolph, we would have maybe heard from them already. Is that the window has already been open.
But again, it goes to where I don't think we're expecting 50, maybe 11 or 12 in a place that doesn't have
Right, but it
the
would allow.
infrastructure.
So that's what people are gonna think of.
Right.
Who live in those areas. Oh my gosh. And you'd have to, but your point is well taken that just because it's allowed 50 doesn't mean that a 50 unit development is actually possible. And so people might look in more detail at what could really happen given the constraints of the different sites. It's interesting.
I have a question that will change the topic slightly. Montague Golf Course, not that I'm advocating that we take it away, but let's say they shut down business. And it seems like prime land to allow for housing. So I'm not, like, why would that not considered as a possibility? Like, just think about future things and things that might happen.
I mean, if you knew it were closing, then maybe that would change it. If it's just a golf course that's existing and continuing, then we're not, the expectation is it will continue as a golf course.
But
Is my
that's a great example. If
Yeah.
we had I was just in a town the other day and they wanted us to include their school because they're like, we're not so sure if that thing is going to keep going. That could be, in that particular town, that was one of the few spots where you could actually do a decent sized housing project.
What's the process like? Say Montague shut down tomorrow and this is already voted in. What's the process to change it?
That's an excellent question.
I don't want to get locked into something for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
there
a lot of-
is in statute, it's never been tried and they're still kind of writing the rules about it. But there is in statute the right now the ability to do a minor amendment to the regional plan, which is a totally new thing, of no more than 10 acres, they say. And that's so we don't have to go through the entire giant regional plan approval process. We could move a line, in essence, over, just like we were just talking about. We get all said and done, and a year from now, people go, well, "Wait a minute, we forgot that spot." And we go, "Oh, okay, maybe we can move that line over there." That is a process, as well as we are hoping that the tier process could also be in there as an amendment process, so that if next year a town that said, no, skip us, and then they said, yes, we want to be in tier 1B, that could essentially turn on with a minimal amount of hearings and whatnot. But yeah, I'm looking at your zoning, that golf course is, it's looks kind of blue to me, I guess. Yeah.
What does that mean, Kevin?
That's so for them, that's their, let's see, that's their GCR district. Or it's either that or residential village high density. There's a couple of two different. Oh no, it is the residential village high density, because there's two different blues. Yeah, so that's what the golf course is largely right now. Yes. So from a zoning and planning point of view, housing would be perfectly appropriate.
Mhm.
Is it not in a floodplain?
Minor
the-
detail.
The black part is, yeah.
Infant word.
There's like a large parcel, like, yeah, there's like on both, like the floodplain goes through it, it looks like, but there is space on either side that's fairly large. That, and like, that would kind of connect it, like Randolph Avenue and that backside over there would be one way to get out, or just on 66 over there.
Well, in a lot of these fancier golf courses, they build housing right on the golf course. So I think that's a future for the owners.
Yeah, golf room about me.
Have condos and broken windows. Beautiful.
But thinking about future stuff, if they were to shut down, all that land would just be sitting there. And that seems like.
Yeah, and from we have it as rural general right now, given the map there. But that's easily the type of place, because it's separated from the other side of the golf course by the floodplain. It's kind of stuck on, so it's not far away from everything else. We're talking with Fairleigh about a very similar spot like this, where it's flat, it's not built on right now, but it's very handy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to come and play in March? Is that what I heard?
Sure. Are there typically two meetings in March, or? Just because I have to make sure my
There
calendar.
could be, but I think this is a bigger one. I don't think this is a select board one. I mean, the select board could be there, but if you want to bring in folks from each of the communities to have the conversation, it's almost like it's a special meeting of some sort. Or a working session of the planning commission, and I don't know what it looks like, but
Okay, well, maybe we can coordinate for a
Trevor
meeting
would
in
love
March.
to work out a date.
Okay.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Right, we'll coordinate on that then.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Reach out with somebody.
Yep. Great. Additional questions or?
So one of the parts, one of the text messages that I'm getting from somebody watching, if you go to the southern part that's yellow down there, and you look at Beanville Road, there is a project that we have, it's scoped, we just haven't got a grant to do it yet, to add water and sewer all the way down. I'd have to look at it better to figure out where the end point is of where we were talking, but I think it's gotta come all the way down to Vermont Castings.
Yeah, it'd be nice if the road labels loaded.
Right-handed, if you look at it, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's kind of along, must be along the yellow, and my version is gonna be blurry. But that's got water and sewer on it and has, a mix of housing and commercial on it
Mhm.
now. Is there a benefit to all that being yellow?
Not for, I mean, it's not an exempted area for residential for activity if it's in the transition.
So there's no benefit to, the only
No,
benefit is if it's gonna be only housing.
yeah, the exemption's only for, up to 50 housing units, but not in the
Down
yellow.
there, it could do it, but
Again, I think a lot of the challenge is how far you can extend that before it starts to get very sprawly.
I struggle with this a little bit because you kind of end up highlighting the areas that are already super dense and there isn't much room. So you have like two plots that like we could, or we have to tear something down. So it's kind of hard to look for expansion when we aren't adding anything on that's gonna make it like sprawl.
well, we're also pink down here by the landfill. So there's only a few parcels here that are in no man's land. But we're talking about putting water and sewer down through there, which would open those parcels up to housing development. Cause that's down on this end is where the housing portions are,
Right.
Is that down this transition?
this area down in here.
Oh, okay.
So
Right
the
there.
intent is to come down Beanville Road, all the way down through to here. I mean, like, you've got, this purple has castings in
Mhm.
it, which is a commercial. right?
Yeah, that's the enterprise.
And then you
So that's industrial.
have, this area all down the Beanville Road. If we have water and
Mhm.
sewer down it, there are some parcels here that are open that could put
Okay.
And then Trini with
larger housing on it.
those conversations about that waters before I was on select board, but like. This over on this side is almost all residential, so if we ran water down here, why couldn't we build on that side? Right? Or
Well,
am I
we can, that's the
backward?
part that I'm saying shouldn't remain green.
Right. Okay, so I'm saying what you were saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
The minimum it should go gold or whatever.
I think it needs to go to the other, I mean, it could be housing.
Could be housing.
If that's some of your more open parcels, and it's really not that far.
No.
People will just have a little bit higher step count than others, but isn't that what they go for, bragging?
Okay, so I don't know, be that far already,
People put John for a day.
I remember exactly how far, but. No,
I think part of the challenge too is there's this enterprise area. And so that's more, it's industrial, it's got manufacturing and commercial.
There's a mix of it down there.
And so these parcels in here would essentially be between the two enterprise. And so it wouldn't necessarily be, it wouldn't go into like a village center or a village area because it's inherently disconnected by the industrial on both sides.
The counter would be, you could have one side of the street that does look like that, and on the other side of the street, because of these lines. Can't, or can easily, or has to be different, but still the same contiguous corridor, it's just, we're literally on either side of Beanville Road at that point.
Yeah. Cause even this other area has a lot of housing in it.
Mhm.
Yes, full houses.
I think it would be good though if we get a date set to do this, to actually blow that yellow part up and look at sort of where does that line really make sense and what's really going on in there.
Planning commission's on Mondays, which Monday? Third?
Which because got switched to Wednesdays.
Oh. Second Wednesdays?
The third.
Third Wednesday?
I think it's just got switched to the third, but it's the-
Third Wednesday would be, oh, sorry, wrong month. Third Wednesday would be the 18th of March.
But if you're in 18-19, you don't reach schedule much,
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
so to you guys, it's a lot of together, you know.
that would be.
We just have a whole bunch.
Yeah, that's so fun.
She did to us in January.
Third. I'm seeing is like Wednesdays.
I'm just thinking if the planning commission is already planning on being available. Why not, right?
Right, nice.
Do you have your calendar up, Kyle?
It looks like I'm at a homeownership conference that day. Right. I'm trying to find where it is.
Yep.
See, I think it ends in the afternoon.
Yeah, I feel like the 16th or 18th, but we could find a time all the planning commission people are already planning on being for here.
It's in Concord. Yeah, and that ends at noon. So
Oh,
I am
plenty
good.
of time.
We are golden.
5:30. Or do you guys usually do 6 or 7,
You can just 7.
8? That time. As it's like 7:14 right now, but so do y'all think 7 o'clock would be a good time to?
At what time? What day? March what?
March 18th, which is the normal planning commission meeting. Then I
If the select board compromises on the day, they compromise on the time.
6 o'clock it is. Yeah,
So we're in for 6 on the 18th.
that might work well,
Okay.
because then I could actually,
Actually could have this meeting and then.
move into your normal
Get
meeting.
in and then.
I'm just thinking we're hijacking your meeting and all of your plans of what you're gonna plan.
A grander.
I'm not an official member of the planning commission.
So we just booked their meeting for them. Well, it's a date.
Great, thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
Excellent questions and thanks for the feedback.
Yep.
great. So we still have a pretty full agenda tonight, so we're gonna
Okay,
move this to March.
We're gonna scoot.
And
Yep,
continue
Got it.
written.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thanks. We'll continue. You can take your time. You're working on our map, we'll let you get through all the. Okay, next up, Economic Development Committee Charge and Downtown Organization Project.
This is one we had talked about, I don't think it was December, maybe, could have been November. All starting to blend together into one large meeting. And there were a couple of different ideas that came out of that. One was to revive the Economic Development Committee and give it a revised charge. And the other part of that was to when you think about the future of the downtown organization, there's got to be some kind of process. There's a process that is aligned with our ICDC that has started in part, but these downtown designations programs funding will have to have municipal authorization or support. So when the idea was to try to create some kind of task force that would then be assembled of a number of interested parties representing a number of different areas to figure out, do we want to do this still? If we do, what's the right structure? What's the right mission set, basically? And how is that board constructed in terms of governance? We even talked a little bit about the funding models, but let's a bunch of stakeholders in town and the others who've been working on it, anybody else who's interested, get together, they get a timeline, they get a charge. And then kind of come back with a recommendation of, yes, we still do this, and if we do, this is what it should look like. And this is what it should be focused on, at least at this point. It's something that you couldn't change it later on. And then you've got something that's come out of a process that hopefully involves as many people as possible. So that was sort of the task force idea. Mark's been working on that more closely. And the timings, I think, we're at kind of doing a spot for that, just with RACC going out in that June, July timeframe. I think that the individual who work for that program is maybe also off to other adventures. And so figuring that out over the next few months, so that maybe there's at least an interruption in programmatic service, I guess, or at least not much of one. Makes some sense to create a charge, figure out appointments, advertise for it, try to pull in people from the effort that's already underway, so nobody feels like they're being sort of bumped off the road, but they already thought they were wrong. They can set that wide, the wide tent, broad tent, big tent with everybody in. And cobble something together. So that's one piece of it. And then it's a question of whether or not you want that task force also. Going back to that December conversation, there was a little bit of that task force might also have the job of looking at the economic development committee charge, but whether you want that to be part of that, the just different thing, there's a slightly different demographic served by that in terms of one's really focused on a geographic area and the other one does have a broader town like responsibilities. What are they responsible for? What are they, focused on? How do they help our economic development resources that would have in house with Mark? So it's just really, what do you want the shape to be? And then sort of what's the timeline? And one I think does have to, if you don't start the committee ever, there's nothing that really happens in terms of a lost opportunity. We're unable to take advantage of something, but the downtown one does have a little bit of a time element. And I'm looking back to Mark, I just babbled, did I get?
I think so.
Okay.
I think they're two separate tasks. I think the downtown one is a big piece. That's the downtown, right? That's looking at that piece of it. I think the Economic Development Committee is a much bigger charge. And one that we need sooner than waiting for this task force on the downtown piece. We're missing out on a lot of the communication with businesses that want to grow or want to come to Randolph. We're missing out on the group that used to get together for townwide events and those type of things. There's a lot of pieces that an Economic Development Committee could be working on while the downtown piece is going on and participate in that too. I think there's enough work that a committee could be formed now and start working on that isn't even, that they should keep their finger on the pulse of what the downtown group is doing, but there's a lot of stuff that could be happening in Randolph right now. I actually drafted a chart that talked about a lot of what they could be working on. And, we have the downtown group is one piece of it, but it's not a very big piece of it. And not to minimize what they're doing, but, we don't do any of the larger events in the downtown that draw people in to help those businesses. That's separate. And that group would probably have whatever comes out of that could have a role in it. But we have businesses that need help now. We have businesses that want to talk about what they want to see in the community to attract the type of employees they want to have we had, we used to have a group that met and they would send a smaller, 2 or 3 members to talk to a business that wanted to expand about things that they don't, may not be town related even. It was to give them some help just to keep them here. Right? Or go help them with recruiting employees. Like, there's a lot of pieces that we could help with, I think, on the economic development side that is outside of just the downtown. What that organization's gonna be and what that organization's gonna do.
You think that's a full committee, or is that more of a set of prescribed listening sessions that happen, or whatever the structure
I
might
think it's
be?
a committee.
Um,
And I think it's a well-rounded committee where somebody can take the lead on organizing an event, or somebody can take the lead on meeting with certain businesses or home development groups or whatnot. We're missing out on providing that more personal touch or outreach to some of these entities that want to do stuff in town. And I really feel like getting 2 or 3 people together that are very focused on Randolph and on different things, going to meet with these groups brings a lot to the table.
Just trying to find that right spot between that and working in concert with the resources we put in place. We've got somebody sort of dedicated to this task set. So how do I make sure it's supportive and not? Just don't want people running off in different directions and then they end up on our doorstep with some hopes or assumptions that we don't even know exist, or, haven't been part of that conversation at that point. So it's about how do we make sure we stitch it together so that it is truly supportive. You can get this support here, but it does tie into resource access to programmatic funding.
Your staff person needs to attend those meetings and be part of that conversation. And be part of that, one person doesn't have the skills needed to do all of this, right? Like, you can be good at one part of it, but when we had a really robust group that was helping with a lot of these different pieces across town, we had a much more vibrant downtown and activity. And I'm not saying it's all because that group went away, because we had the economy, we had COVID, we had all kinds of crap. We haven't recovered from that. And we've tried the model of having one employee to try to spearhead it all. And, we've seen a few good initiatives out there for sure, like Randolph 5 is good. And although I'd like to see it get out of the village sometimes, but like, it's more of there's more than that to it, right? Like, we didn't have the Rees this year. We all know there's more to the story than that, and I'll drop it at that, but a group that was there to say, wait, if you're not gonna do it, let's find somebody to do it. That piece is missing. Right? And there's no golf tournament. There used to be I forget what it was, but there was like a special golf tournament that took place that had different parts of town that came to try to beat the other part of town. There was, I don't remember, you probably remember some more than I do of some of these things, but there was a variety of events that took place that brought people out in the spirit of something to do community-wide. I think we didn't do the donkey basketball game, Bethel did, but I think that brought out, they had different teams that were made up from different parts of town that competed. We're missing that whole piece that gives more of the town some type of way in and desire to be here, but it also then brings out into the business side of it and the jobs and that balance.
As you're describing this, almost every single thing in downtown has a new owner since that's happened. I mean, Bellman's is gone, like all Main Street basically has changed hands. Mine's the barber shop and Armad's, like, you can pick out a few that have been there for 10+ years, but almost all the other businesses are new owners.
Somehow you gotta bring that in and get that to thrive. Like, how do you?
Yeah, and there's kind of an informal, speaking of the downtown owner, we all support each other and stuff, but having a direction to take it, I think would be really helpful.
But it's more than the downtown too, right?
Well,
Like,
sure,
it's,
but yeah,
how do you bring in?
yeah.
Absolutely.
the manufacturing company in East Randolph. How do you bring in
Yeah.
the other parts, that are there? There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
But it also, I participated in the group that did that, and we would actually go and sit down with a business that wanted to expand, and it was somebody who had the experience and had built a business in town, and it was somebody who had financing background, and there was all these components, and we didn't have an economic development director at the time, but what we brought to the table was a team of people that were there to talk about all the different aspects that those folks wanted at the table. And it was, you made that up by this group that was dedicated to it. They got together twice a month, I think we got together, and we had that whole piece to it, and it was fairly concerted, and different things come up. They needed help with 4th of July parade, or they needed, that group found it. They found the money for the fireworks. It's that group that we need back.
May I speak?
Sure.
I did read your draft for the charge, and I concur that an advisory committee makes a lot of sense. It's the way in which it's created that I think there may be some different approaches that might be worth considering. When you approved having an economic development director for the town of Randolph, it was the first 2 years, it was really a zoning administrator and an economic development person. And so that person was able to do a limited amount of things, and then COVID hit. When I started, we also had zoning in there for a couple of years, and there was a limited amount of opportunity to be able to create a new economic advisory committee, which was in existence when I started. I chose to disband it because it was really kind of erratic. There was a lot of silos in this community with economic development and ideas and nonprofits of what we can do. And it's been a little bit of a challenge to try to figure out how best to utilize everyone's talents and what can work. What we've come to right now is the timing is perfect to actually do this, because the challenges of RACDC closing are pretty substantial. We've actually been focusing a lot on the triage of a number of different aspects of what's happening there with the housing that we're not getting with other components that are a challenge. And what it's made us realize is the idea of putting together an informal task force will allow us to actually address some of the critical issues now while we're laying the groundwork for a new economic development committee. And what I sent out to Trevor to look at was, how can we mitigate the financial operational risks associated with RACDC's closure? And you think, well, perhaps that's an item that can be done sort of internally while that's unwinding. However, the development of the framework of the downtown organization also touches on many of the things that you're talking about right now. Okay, what we lack is a charge of what the town has expected the downtown organization to do this whole time. The relationship has been poor, and they've done their own thing. They've come back at the end of the year, and they've given you a list of the things they've accomplished, and the town has paid them. This is a perfect opportunity to actually establish what those expectations are with a designated downtown organization. And I think the having an informal task force now to start to put these pieces together, rather than rushing into doing just a committee, allows us an opportunity to kind of look at the three components, which is, again, the downtown organization, and then how we actually put the foundation together for an economic development committee. And in doing that, we're also doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing in the short term. And we bring in players from the sorry, I'm a little nervous. We bring in players from the manufacturing sector, all organizations that we've spent the last 3 years getting to know. And we bring in players from Gifford. We bring in players from VTSU. We have two business owners from the downtown. We have the town manager and the economic development director. We have roughly 10 people or 9 people on that committee, and you guys will ultimately determine who that is. And each month, over 3 months, we report to you and we tell you what progress we're making, and you can direct us to do further homework if you want us to move in a different direction. And each month, as we report to you, we'll have that conversation. At the end result, will be, we've mitigated the risk associated with the RACDC closure because we're talking about it. We're getting perspective from other people, including the business owners, and we're building a plan for the future, which will be the economic committee. And it'll be one that's actually starts with a charge and a purpose where everybody knows what they're getting into, and it won't be just rushed. And I'm not even rushed it'll just be more thoughtful. And the people that are in there, when as of day one, they'll actually fully understand what's going on. That was my recommendation. And we are working really hard to do all the things that you're talking about every day. And we do have a small staff and we do need further support, but a lot of these things are being accomplished. And watching the RACDC close, while it's been painful, it is an opportunity for us to reevaluate and look at the bigger picture. And I think you've hired an economic development director to help with this. And I have been at the forefront of all of this for the last 3 years. And I've watched the different organizations, how they've played out, which ones are likely to make it, which ones even to this day aren't, which partners have done well as partners for us and which ones haven't. And so again, being able to impart this wisdom and knowledge on what's going on with our relationships with our state partners, with other stakeholders, to an organization, an informal committee over a few months. I mean, it gives us an opportunity to make some smart decisions. And so that's my thought.
I think though that we've done this, right? Like you said, you've been at the forefront, you've been out there, but we still have businesses that want to expand that aren't getting everything they need. You know, we're sitting here, one of our items on here is the fireworks. How are we gonna do the fireworks? How are we gonna fund it? Who's gonna take the lead?
That's a great question. I think determining what the expectation of the downtown organization is will allow us to be able to transfer that workflow, those events. It most likely should be some sort of iteration of a designated downtown that does that. Those are the programs which historically have worked well for a program manager who's working in a designated downtown organization. It hasn't worked well for the chamber. It's just been a little bit of a challenge from the standpoint of working with the town, from the standpoint of consistency. So again, with a task force to be able to determine how these events can move going forward, we can then set the charge. And when the organization gets back up and running, we give them the map to move forward. So the expectations are clear of what the town is paying for when it, pays the organization, which is currently $20,000 a year.
So, no disrespect, but $20,000 a year from the town and $25,000 from the state is not gonna get you much of an organization.
Well,
We're gonna get $45,000 worth of something,
Right.
right? So not even a part-time position
Well,
when you look at,
indeed.
right? So there's gotta be a much bigger picture here than a downtown organization to be created over months of time, right? You're still going to need people to step up and do work.
Indeed, we are.
And right now, you've got a bunch of people energized, ready to step in. So if we're going to now tell these people, cool your heels, we'll get to you once we get through this it's more important that we focus on what our downtown is gonna look like and our downtown committee. You guys all that wanna jump in and help, you just wait. In a few months, we'll get back to you on what the downtown group wants. It's the town of Randolph. It's
Absolutely.
not the downtown of Randolph.
Right. Well, this is why I tried to explain that is one component of what the task force would be working on. The bigger picture, the foundational work for the committee is also a very large component. And I think the people that you're talking about that have this energy to move are the people that were also, we agree would make the most sense to be on the committee.
So why wait?
Representation from the manufacturers, representation from the two largest employers in the county, Gifford and the college, representatives from the downtown businesses, representatives from the town itself, a representative from the board even should be on that committee. And that will allow us, like I said before, just to have the time to put together a charge. So when the actual committee is is a go, we're just.
So I think there's a couple of different ways to. You gotta do. We've identified that we want to do both these pieces, and one of them is going away. So it's, how do you want to structure them? Do you want to do separate, get them started, run them on? And they're not really parallel tracks, they're just running at the same time. We'll run them through sort of one development mechanism and then see what comes out of that. And the one development mechanism fit sort of the earlier conversation, knowing that we were a couple of months ago. And that's part of why we've been thinking about, does that make sense as a structure? But they're helpful to us, but it's an advisory body of yours in terms of appointment creation and all that. So in terms of what you want out of it when you create it and how you staff it. There's a great amount of latitude there, and then obviously we provide the staff support. Some form, primarily Mark would do that.
I
It's like
think
we
you
have
run them
for
at the
years.
same time. I think you have a huge boost to energy right now, ready to come in and help. Like, why would you shut that down and be like, no, we'll
Who
let
are
us
you
go
referring
further.
to?
Well, there's people right now that want to come forward and help. There's no way for that to happen, right? This committee comes back, you can set it up many ways, but it's the bigger picture right now that.
Could those people become part of the task force, which would then become the committee itself?
Yeah, I mean, there might be two different products though, too, out of this in terms of whatever the downtown thing is gonna spin off has a different sort of structure. And what they might identify as task forces members might split. Just having seen similar things before in terms of just based on their alignment of interest.
I have concerns about the timing of actually creating a downtown organization that is viable to handle any of these things within what we're talking June. So we lose our downtown designation in June because we don't have an organization as of right now. So is there someone else that we can partner with, like GMDC or something, to partner, like to become a downtown designation for like?
I think we're the help we're waiting for.
I just don't see it happening where, because we can't be that entity ourselves, so we have to create something, and then we're seeing so many problems with the way that our two other organizations have been and are ran. That they can't be organized enough to take on fireworks, for example. They have limited capacity there. And then we've found, so many problems with the way our HDC has been ran. That now we're going to create a group of volunteers that create a new downtown designation with $45,000. Probably no employee basically that can also handle $45,000 responsibly and without oversight. Like that's just, I don't feel comfortable having a group of volunteers create an organization by June that can handle that type of responsibility.
I think it's more what they're looking at, or what are I mean, I don't think you might come out of it with a clear cut, this is the organization you need to form, here's the pathway to do it. I think it's looking about what type of organization should it be? Who's involved, what does it focus on? Because like you're right, $45,000 is not gonna go very far. What you might come out of it with, and I'm just spitballing, is an organization that is more focused on some of the event management piece. It is volunteer heavy. It's designed to help us maintain that downtown designation status. And then there can be some sort of longer conversation about, should a build out happen? If it does, what does it look like? Who's responsible? What's the funding need and all of that? And so there could even be those sort of pieces of, it should survive in some form. This is the form that we can pull off based on resources and timing. So it's a narrow scope, and then we keep going.
And that organization would have no oversight besides the volunteers for $45,000.
No, it'll depend on what the structure is too. So there's a chance to shape what that board looks like. And I know that the state has some preferences on who serves on those things, but I didn't take away that you were bound to not have a role in that. They would prefer to sit outside of our roof as a separate structure in order to maintain it. But it could be that a board of directors has a dedicated town representative on.
So could that board of directors be in charge of $45,000 that's held within the town?
I think there are different ways we could structure it. We could maybe even, like if those, I don't know about the vibrancy fund and where that has to go. I don't even know if that can if that's just something we sign off on and it goes, or we can even house that, for example. But for the $20,000, you could set up a structure where it's, you have to, through our accounts payable process, draw down. And so then you've got a level of authority board review at the organizational level, then it comes through our AP process. And then the board would see sign off, checks are issued, so there are some ways to bake in.
You can set up an entity in
Right.
Vermont that has no staff, and the town could staff that entity and we do it with Operation Lifesaver at the state level. It's a separate entity, it's a nonprofit, it goes around and educates folks about train safety. It's staffed with V-Trans staff. We do their financials, we do everything. But, that's probably the safer way to do this.
Yeah.
And then, quite frankly, the town could hire somebody as a temp or a part-time employee to staff that type of function, and it would give the town a lot more say in it. I don't think it's not terribly hard to do, but I still come back to, though, if you are hiring a part-time employee, even 45,000 is not going to pay them much. It's not a lot of money, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done out there, and I just hate to wait.
Right, yeah, I agree, I think we need to get on doing stuff. But I also wouldn't sign off on just handing over money to a group of people, because we are seeing how very professional organizations with all kinds of credentials have messed up handling money pretty badly.
I think the overarching goal of all this, and we broke down the same thing, is how do we do this better?
Yeah.
But it also hasn't worked. There isn't a lot to sort of hang your head on with some of the pieces in terms of with the downtowns, I know outside of a few events and all that. So how is whatever happens on all of these more effective and better connected? Because we have had some moments where we've been caught flat-footed and unaware of conversations that have happened. That's hard for us to then try to figure out what's the right answer mechanically, practically, to not get crosswise of anything else that's going on. And so to the extent we can avoid in any of those formats, surprises, that's also
I also think, there's not a lot of buy-in, there wasn't a lot of buy-in to RSPC or the chamber from the businesses because of lack of real support from either one. And so I think that's kind of where like there's this discontent of just like trying to find a place to belong and a place to connect with each other and to connect with resources and help each other. And there is no answer right now. And I think that's what kind of like what Trini's trying to say. There's a lot of energy of just like everyone wants everything to be better and do better and like all collectively. And I think there's a lot of truth of just wait, like that's just gonna cause more discontent. And I think like we are at this moment where everyone wants to connect, and I think trying to connect everybody would be good.
like I said, it's your advisory body and make it work. So whatever the structure is, all of this will work. There's not one right or wrong answer. It all works.
I think there's some positive to getting some quick wins too,
Mhm.
right? To kind of bring up. If it's that we figure out how we're gonna handle the fireworks, or if we can figure out how to bring back a winter festival, or figure out some of those stuff for events, but also, is there support that can be given to some of these businesses, or can we, those type of things. I think if you can start to show some positives and some wins out there, to some of these things that people raise as concerns that don't have to be piled on your desk, that's a help too.
But also maybe encourage this to the broader community too. It's hard for us to sit down at what's effectively a blackjack table and find out that it's actually poker and people are holding cards. And so we don't even always know the game. So if folks have ideas, if there are things we can help with and we don't know about those, like I can make a lot of guesses based on pattern recognition and experience, but see everything that's out there and working mark very bad. So if folks need something at some point, even right now, it helps if they engage with us. Because if they don't, then I don't know how to help.
But I think, yeah, that's the point though, is like I knew someone who was trying to open up a business because I heard, because I know her, and then reached out to her and then actually got her in connection with finance, like financial stuff and that she'd ever heard of. And so like, and then I'm of course connected here, but there's a lot of that happening where there's no like clear like knowledge of what's here and what's available. And I think that's where like creating a committee and having more voices and more connections, like it's a spider web. And it goes out and then we can hear about those things instead of, you know.
I will say that the partnerships that we have with Two Rivers, with JMADC, and the work that we've done developing the economic development office here, without directly hearing about specific stories, it is very hard to, getting to know all of the manufacturing sectors has taken a few years, getting to know what their needs are, getting to know what the challenges they're facing. And granted, we don't know all of them, but we've spent a good deal of time getting to know them. We know all the downtown businesses. We know the largest players in the downtown. We know the largest organizations where we spend. We know all the players at the college. We know we're getting very close with the hospital. So we've taken the time. I know what you're saying, Trini. But what I haven't had from you as a phone call is this is an organization that needs something to see if we can help them. Because if you do that, then we actually have the freedom to be able to follow the network and the people that we've built relationships with, because we've built a lot of them, and without giving us a try. And this is where, if we go back to the committee, if we go back to establishing a task force, we can actually explain to you rather than working in. I'm afraid that they're going to be two siloed organizations here. You're talking about establishing.
You're gonna be on it.
But
So you'll be siloed from yourself, Mark, in that scenario. If you attend the meetings and you participate, you'll be on it.
Okay. What I'm trying to convey, Trini, is that if we have a little bit of time to actually sit down and talk about the formation of that committee and how it's going to look and what the immediate problems are that we're facing, which are substantial with RACDC, okay, with organizations that may be having challenges, with the projects that we're currently working on right now. In addition to all of this, we're also building and working on developing the new town plan. So this is actually an opportunity to talk about how a downtown organization is going to tie into that town plan. And over the next 3 months, we could talk about that into more detail. And so while I understand that there's a feeling right now that this has to happen overnight, there are so many components, there's so many moving parts that to just vote to establish a committee and without looking at all of the part and parcels and what's going on, I don't think it's a responsible thing to do for the community. You've hired somebody to get to know all of these organizations and businesses. And over the last 3 years, I've done that. And I'm telling you, it's not a prudent decision to move hastily without looking at all the different components. And I'm just saying, if you want to take the advice of the person that you've hired to do this, I don't think it's a prudent idea.
But economic development is more than the downtown committee and the businesses currently here. It's a lot more.
I agree with you.
And it takes more than one person, Mark, to do that. That's what we're saying. Like,
Can I-
I'm on the same page. That's what I'm saying.
I'd like to interrupt you for a moment because this is a great conversation. I think this is a really important conversation. And I'm feeling a lot of conflict, but I'm also hearing a lot of shared concern, a lot of shared sense of urgency, and just a slightly different timeline for how to go about it. And so I'm not sure what the resolution is, but I just want to sort of frame this as like, I think you're both talking about largely the same stuff. You want the same outcome. And you also want pretty much like the same way of getting there. It's a matter of what order do we put some of these steps in and how fast do some of these pieces get put into place. But even there, I mean, I'm not hearing like a huge amount of discrepancy, even if like we could vote tonight to establish a committee and then we're gonna have to take time to get applications to go to have people put on the committee. Like it's all gonna take some time anyway. So I'm not sure at the end of the day that we're really talking about a really big difference in, you know, how fast we end up at a particular spot.
if you form a task force to look at just the downtown and how to address that. Some of the stuff with our ACDC is not for a task force. It's the towns to sort out. And the select board's gonna have to figure it out. The whole financial mess, all those pieces, that's not a task force. The pieces you're looking to pick up is that downtown committee and how they interacted with businesses on the revolving loan fund, which is part of the financial mess that we gotta sort out. So I think the downtown group it's an important piece and you have to figure that out. But if you take all your time to figure out your downtown group, then you have to then start your conversation of what you're gonna have for a committee to look at the entire town. And then figure out how to staff it. So you're just delaying putting that in play. Right? So we don't know how long it's gonna take to create this downtown group that this special task force is gonna do. And then you want them to look at a charge for an economic development committee. It's a different cast of characters. Some of them will
I heard Mark
overlap.
say it was gonna happen relatively quickly, like it's not gonna happen tomorrow, it's not gonna happen 6 months from that either. That's what I thought I heard.
But you said a couple of months.
Well, what I said was the task force would report back to you monthly, and the objective would be over 3 months to then have a committee, a downtown economic committee, or I'm sorry, an economic committee fully established, or the idea behind it. And even at month 2, you could decide that you wanted to move forward with that. It would just be that up to 3 months to be able to have the task force reporting to you.
I have a question. The task force. Then would they, or like, how do we get from them to the committee? Cause I'm confused why we would have a task force and not just go to a committee. Like, would they become the committee? What if there's other people who wanna be on the committee, but then you're like, well, we've already got a task force, we don't need more people. I wanna understand that.
It depends on charge and time, so like I said, you bank it to the point, if you gave a group the single charge and they're developing sort of both of these pieces concurrently. What you probably do is have some point where committee splits this way, downtown group splits this way, because while they have some overlap, they do have different functions. And then you might see members of that look to go with whatever area of interest. And then in which case you have to fill out, or somebody has to fill out whatever it is. For those group sizes after that. It would depend if you did it that way. But you end up at the same spot, just at a different point in the process. It's really about how do you develop structure charge. If you want to do that sooner, constitute a group, do it separately, you can move to that point. Move that, the calendar to the left, if you want to do it the calendar to the right.
I guess like one of the things I think is important is a buy-in to a downtown program, because there hasn't really been good buy-in to the chamber or ACDC from any of the businesses in downtown or outside of downtown. And I think if we made a task force that was, the state, like who is on that? Because like you want buy-in to that, and if it's, I'm not sure this is what you were talking about, but if it's the college and the hospital and whatever, these big players that know nothing about most of the downtown businesses, what is gonna be the buy-in for a small business when the people that aren't connected to us?
That's a great question, and I think both your charge had 2 downtown businesses, and so did the informal committee. It would be 2 downtown businesses as well. It was just in addition to that, it was also having representation from the manufacturing sector, Gifford and the college. I mean, obviously Gifford's the staff and the activity downtown as a result of Gifford is substantial.
And presumably this is gonna be a committee that meets in public, transparent process that can be attended by anybody. And so people will have lots of opportunity, even if they're not former members of the committee, to participate and give their input.
You create it becomes a public body, so to speak.
But I think Stephanie's right. Like, if you want a successful downtown group, it's 2 members of the downtown being told by 6 or 8 members
No,
outside
that is
the
a separate,
downtown.
that is
a
actually
different-
the downtown organization has its own board, as it does now, it will again.
But the task force to create what that downtown entity looks like becomes key to the downtown members wanting to work with it and make it
Not
succeed.
open to people's
So
minds.
it's more like
Yeah.
6 members of the downtown and 2 members from out versus vice versa. Whereas your economic development committee, it
Right.
needs to grab people from all over town right now that want to.
I think, yeah, that's like, I think that's like the chicken and the egg sort of conversation that's happening right now. We need the buy-in. People want to buy into it right now and help develop it. And I think trying to isolate people, and just say, you can come to the public meetings that's not making me feel good about it. A bunch of people sitting around a table telling me what I should want and what I should need, because there's so much disconnect already
Yeah.
from the organizations that do exist to the businesses.
Yep.
And I feel like, yeah, we have to
Yeah.
move forward with inviting everyone who wants to come to the table to have a say in this and not just making it long and cumbersome or siloed. And I think like, I actually think the Economic Development Committee makes sense to start with, then to break off into a task force underneath that. To help with the downtown organization. I don't know, I don't see why they can't work at the same time.
It's just in the interest of time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What I'm hearing is. You want us to come back with something where we run them concurrently, maybe we'll solicit members for each group so you can get a sense of membership types and even who's interested. And sort of a timeline for getting an advisory committee off the ground, and if we did a task force, what would that time frame look like, and what might a scope sort of narrow in on the downtown piece? Or is that not helpful at all? I'm trying to make this more mechanical. Based on what I'm hearing, so if I'm.
I just don't see
somewhere
how,
else-
I don't see how we get out of any of this without creating a committee. That's like, not like right in this moment, but I'm just saying like, how do we move forward? And we keep talking about having a committee, but we don't do it. I just don't understand. It's already been talked about for like a year already. And we haven't done anything.
Anytime you guys wanna give me more help, I'm more than.
I'm not saying,
No, I know,
I'm
that's,
saying like, as a
that's our
select board,
pinch point,
that's
I'm
like,
not trying to be defensive, but that's our pinch point.
and I'm not saying
For
like,
5 years,
you-
staffing's the pinch point.
I'm not saying you or you haven't done it. I'm saying like, we've all been sitting at this table. And like, we haven't as a board taken any action to move forward. And I don't think this is like a taking over thing or anything like that. It's working together and creating a larger network. And having more people be involved and helping. Instead of saying we can't do it all because we're only, so many people. That's why everyone wants to get involved, is to help.
I think your analogy of a spider web is right,
Yeah,
right? The more people you get, the bigger it gets.
Yeah. the more you know about what's going
The
on.
more
and
people
how
can
you
bring stuff in, more people can help address it. There's things that if Mark's sitting there, he'll learn about, but maybe he doesn't have to do them because somebody else will do them, or you can get people to. You need a taskmaster, but. Yeah. Like, okay, if you're gonna go do it, but we need to report back and. This is what we do or whatever.
So who would the taskmaster be?
Whoever chairs the committee,
So you want both,
choose a big one, choose a good one.
so both structures to run concurrently is what.
I think so. And but the makeup of it could be that, I think you could do it as a. Subcommittee for the downtown. I mean, I think that's what you're gonna have to do anyway.
Yeah,
The way I see it is like, you're gonna have an overall committee. And then you may have like a couple members of the committee and 4 or 5 interested people from the public to help organize a winter festival or. This company wants to talk to a group, and so you may have somebody good on the committee with finance and somebody, with something else, and they get together and help them with. Writing a business plan, or. There's a resource that can come in, or like, I don't know. Just playing it off the top of my head here, but. That's what we did before. We helped people write grants. We helped them with business plans. We helped connect them to banks that we knew would work with certain types of. Projects or funding schemes, or. It's that whole.
Mark, when I was running for select board at first, you actually pulled me aside and gave me the best advice I ever had before getting on the select board. This is government work. It's not going to be like running your own business, and you can't make things happen really fast. And That was really smart of you to say to me. I think about that a lot, actually, that conversation rolled through my, but like, that's, like, those are the people that we're getting to the table, and like, you give them like we're the doers, like, we've created our businesses from nothing. And like, you just like give us a little whip of something needing to be done, and like, we're gonna like run off and do it, and I think it's actually gonna help amplify all of you and everything that you've done. To kind of give us a space to be able to kind of take things to the next level too, because you need like 20 people, 30 people to run Winterfest or whatever else.
Or 150, but yeah.
Splitting hairs, but like that, like that's the type of thing where like that's not something that you necessarily have to be involved with, because you're doing all these other great foundational things, like, you know, like answers and things that we business owners can't necessarily give to each other, but like that's how we can take this like energy and like really blow it up and work off of everything that you've built and help support you, but like help you amplify everything that you've done to larger community. I think that's what I see this as, is like as an extension of all the wealth of knowledge and work that you've done.
Thank you.
And thank you for that advice.
Government usually does not move quick. Once in a while we can.
Once in a while.
Okay. You ready to move
Thank you.
forward?
Yeah.
Discuss the 4th of July fireworks, speaking of which.
This is me, isn't it?
Well, I think there's some money in the budget to help with it. And now what we need to figure out is how we fundraise for the rest.
Yes, and I guess part of this was the town hasn't taken official ownership of this yet, and so I do have permission from the landowner. We have a contract with a fireworks company that we could sign at any time if we're taking ownership of it. Our insurance will cover it,
Probably.
probably cover it. So probably don't get hurt out of this. So in order for me to start actually asking for funds from, or donations, funds, however we need to word that, if the budget passes the way that we hope, we'll have $5,000 out of $20,000 that we need, so there's $15,000 that needs to be raised, and I think that's possible, but can't fundraise without making sure that we are all on the same page of the ownership of it as the town. Just discussion, I think.
I handle conversations about fireworks like I handle actual fireworks, which is as little as possible, not at all preferable.
So I'll give you the thing to light them.
Yep.
I mean, I don't see a downside to it as long as the insurance covers it.
Is there anything else? Should we vote to take ownership of it so we can sign the contract?
I want to check with the insurance to make sure you don't need like some type of an agreement with the landowner or what that all looks like.
Yeah.
Usually they have some wonky paper that they want in place.
Yeah, make sure that, yeah, the right coverages and additional insured and all the other stuff and so on.
Yeah.
No question.
Yes.
We take ownership. And you said you'll kind of lead finding the extra funds next year or like the years after. Would that also fall back on select board town
It
finding
will
funds?
likely fall into the downtown organization that we're going to create from now on.
I just,
This is, I'm hoping that this will kind of be a placeholder for a year.
Yeah.
Because between, the money has to be given over to the fireworks folks here soon. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that this is like a one-off year.
Kind of to preserve the slot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine, there's so many reasons that it would really be sad not to have the fireworks.
Oh,
but
no,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, given that circumstance,
Yeah.
just kind of picking it up for this year at least, and then, so no promises that we're gonna do it next year, hopefully we'll have
Right.
something else in place, but I'm on the board for 2 more years, so, And I opened my mouth and now I have a project. So-
I'm just thinking
But
about,
I'm
just thinking about you.
I'm making jokes. I'm really excited to make sure that this happens.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
So would you want to vote on the board to assuming insurance
Yeah.
coverage can be gotten and the details can be worked out, the town takes the
So
lead of the firework
Stephanie,
and Stephanie raises the money for it.
It's the ownership.
the Clarketarian.
The Clarketarian is the sole owner of the whole thing.
Then I just won't be Clarketarian after March, and then it won't be my problem anymore.
I don't think it's transferable.
You are at firework. Like to Clarketarian.
Any motions? I guess I can make the motion. I motion to take ownership of the Fourth of July fireworks for the year 2026.
Pending verification that we can insure ourselves and the landowner effectively, perhaps.
Perhaps, pending verification of insurance coverage with the landowner and town insurance.
A second. All those in favor?
I
Okay. Opposed? Carries. Gravel pit lease.
I'm just thinking about timing. Technically, we're still negotiating. Do you want to table this one? Want to go into executive session for other stuff, talk about it then?
Yep.
Move through the other items, or do you want to, we can break and do it now? Any action you take, it's gotta be after we come back, but.
We'll move that one into executive session. The letter to V-Trans about the Route 66 Central Bridge, Street Bridge, giving them ownership of the 50% of the
Yeah.
western abutment.
Basically, do you want to authorize me to draft that and send it? I think I've got some of the language pieces, but.
Yep. So, the background on it, as we all know, the bridge is damaged. Tipped into a full records check of who actually owns the bridge, because it's right where the road changes from town responsibility to state. It ends up, it's very clear that the eastern abutment and the bridge itself belong to the state, but the western abutment, there is conflicting language. And a case can be made that the town owns 50% of that abutment. But a good conversation with the manager of the bridges and the state attorney, they're willing to accept ownership of the full abutment, and I did express that we would more than gladly give it to them. So, the cleanup piece is just to sign they were supposed to provide a document for us to sign. That hasn't come forward. In checking with them where the document was, they said, oh, we added some documents to our file. And I said, well, no, that's not quite as final as it should be. So, this will just clarify that when they put it on the schedule, which now looks like it will be 28 for work, that it's all on the state and the town doesn't have to pay for any of it.
Trini, did something change in the last couple of weeks? Cause I checked in with V-Trans and got a message from them saying that they did extensive research and determined that they were the owners of the bridge a couple of weeks ago.
Was extensive.
We've actually clarified that about 4 months ago, 5 months ago with them and got it clarified. And so they are the owner of the bridge, but the paperwork hasn't caught up on it yet. So when you go into the title, I forget what the language is, but it said, there's 2 different spots where it talks about the ownership of the western abutment. And it can be read by somebody that the town owns half of the western abutment. And so they were supposed to prepare a legal document that basically said the town releases any claim they might have to 50% of the abutment. To make it clear in the land record, that's the document we've been waiting for, but it hasn't come. When I checked back with the manager of it, he said that they had just documented everything in the file, they thought it was good. The attorney says it never hurts to have a pretty solid document in there that's filed so that you have something to go back to that says we're releasing any claim we might have to the 50% of the western abutment.
Good to be safe.
Well, somebody else doesn't have to dig in and try to figure it out 20 years from now.
What is it? Like a top bottom?
Right.
I told them it was the air rights.
Well, I motion to approve drafting is signing of letter to V-Trans.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Grant management policy.
I don't know if you wanna come join us up here, Stephanie, or you want me to do it?
I mean,
Yeah, you don't have
sure.
to.
I don't think I was getting up.
Finance, Stephanie.
Others.
You have to switch seats, but not the clerkatarian. There's really not much to present. This is a housekeeping measure, but Stephanie did most of the background.
The proposal before you is simply to add a clause to the grants policy. In the grants management section, that the management of the grant should be consistent with the adopted financial policies of the town. So that's why it's housekeeping in nature.
So how does that work with like, the grant that went to New England Precision? Because in that one, they, A&R allowed them to use their own procurement policy. And some of those pieces to deliver that grant, so it wouldn't be necessarily in compliance with our policies, but it would be compliant with the grant.
I think it's the sub-grant relationship that changes that a little bit then. Because we also specify that in our agreement with them in that case. There was a state sub-grant language. So
So
we're
this is-
talking mostly about our responsibility.
So this is only grants that come to the town and the
Town
town,
manages the grant.
well, but we manage others, right? We manage a portion of pass-through grants, and so these are gonna be only ones we implement, whatever the grant's for.
So the grant management section of the grant policy. How that applies to the pest and grant is my understanding, there's generally a additional agreement. That spells out the terms of, when we have a grant that is passing through a sub-grantee.
Yep.
Could add a sentence that says sub-grant agreements may be subject to
Yeah, cause this, as
separate or
exactly,
additional.
this part of the policy talks about grant compliance even, not just the implementing, so making sure our ACDC did certain things, or New England Precision, or trying to think of who else we get grants for, the flavor of the week coming through. When we give them a sub-agreement, that changes, right? So they are able to be compliant with the grant if they follow their policies. And we say, oh, you gotta follow the town ones now. Just wanted to be clear, like,
Right.
we're talking about ones that we're doing, so where we're buying something, or we're implementing something, or we're doing whatever. Following our policies makes sense, but for another entity, they're compliant with the grant if they follow their own procurement policy and their own finance
And
system.
the same would be true if we are getting a direct federal grant that has a more stringent requirements than our own policies that have been adopted.
Okay, but in this one, we're saying that we're gonna manage it, the grant must be managed in conformity with all policies adopted by the town. And they may not, right? Depending what it is.
So if we have entered into an agreement that spells out if that specification in the grant, then we essentially adopted that in that agreement.
But that's not our policy.
That's.
That's a contract, right? It's not our policy. But if we tell them they gotta follow our grant policy, which tells them they gotta follow all the rest of our policies. I think we can clarify as is talking about only the ones the town is
The town is
implementing, not pass through, does not include pass through grants or something like that.
Yeah.
Just out of sentence. It just says this applies. Town grants only.
Or it just says that all non-pass-through grants shall be managed.
If you want us to workshop something, bring it back.
No, I think we can do it that easy, can't we? So you don't have to come back. That just says all non-pass-through grants.
I wonder if that gets everybody though.
Is that a something? Let's see. If they're not passed through, they should be following our policies.
There's like any grants we get for like highway department, sidewalks that we are using the money for.
Yeah,
So they would have to follow ours.
But
yeah.
Library has to follow ours.
All grants that are non-subrecipient grants. I don't know which one is better nomenclature, pass through or non-recipient, subrecipient grant.
Subrecipient might be broader because it would cover the pass-throughs, and if for some reason there's a direct payment mechanism. I can't think of one that is structured that way, but that doesn't mean it's.
Do you want another first?
All non-subrecipient. It's like a double compound modifier. So we said all non-subrecipient grants, all non-subrecipients to the beginning of that sentence.
Do we have to define subrecipient? Do we define subrecipient?
Don't know that it is defined. in the policy.
Sub-grant is,
So it goes back to you want us to come up with something and bring it back.
well, maybe, but we do define sub-grant in here, which is funds granted to the subrecipient by the recipient with restrictions on its use. So all grants other than sub-grants. If we define sub-grant, right?
All grants, not including sub-grants, shall be managed in compliance. So the amended language would be all grants, not including sub-grants, shall be managed in compliance with all financial policies adopted by the town.
motion to approve as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Who carries? That was a tough one. We have adopting. Adopting the town certificate for mileage, highway mileage, had no changes on it.
Annual tradition, there's no change in mileage.
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Please sign it before you go.
Town managers report,
I don't think they have anything new to add.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Could we? That's a good spot.
Actually, might be a good spot.
Yeah.
You wanna go get stuff?
Yep.
It's all in here?
No, most of it, yeah.
Good. Hang on, I got.
You have to stop for a second.
do we have, I'm wondering though, do we have to go to, oh, we're on recording. Do we have to go into executive session and then come take the liquor board and then?
Well, before that, thought, Trini, you are ending a lot of years serving your town here and, there's another piece of paper. Okay, and so, we want to give you flowers for your very last select board member as chair. Although we, yes, we do have one more meeting that we get to enjoy each other, but, we want to say thank you very much for all of your service to the town. Yeah, thank you. We're gonna miss you.
Not that far away.
Don't be a stranger.
I got that one.
Okay, cool. And then we also want to thank Molly, for your years of service as well. Yes, we really appreciate all you've done for the town and we can't wait for you to be on that side over there and have some public comment for us and
In accordance with the rules.
You can have your 2 minutes.
Hold on.
babe.
Wow.
Pack it all into 2 minutes. Be the first one to speak, so I can be the one. But you actually can set new rules next year.
Oh, good.
What you want
We
to
can
do.
give you 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Nice. Yeah. Cool.
So.
For all of you that came just for that, thank you. Been
Those are-
13 years, if anybody wants to know.
And how many years on DRB before that?
21.
21 years on the DRB? How old are you?
Wait, 21 years for the 13 years? There was no.
Some of it overlapped.
Some overlap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many years total did you serve on DRB or select board? And were you anything else before that? Did you serve anything else before
You're
DRB?
still on the planning commission too, or no?
I was on the planning commission for a while. Police services committee for a while.
First or second time?
Both. Yep. I've, yeah. Crazy when you stop thinking about it. I think we finally sorted it out. I've represented the town in 5 lawsuits. Won all 5. The biggest one was the fire station. We made $10,000 off it. I got 10,000 more than it cost us to build the station by the time we were done.
I covered the lawyer fees.
Yeah, no, the lawyer fees come out of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was net. We netted it. Yeah. Well, scary to look back at everything that we've done.
Yeah. Yeah, before we move on, I also wanted to just thank you, Trini, for all this time, and I just had some observations.
Oh, boy.
Since we've been on the board together for the last 9 years. And for the folks who follow select board doings, you'll know that Trini and I don't always agree on everything. But even though we don't, we always do so with respect and a professionalism that I've always deeply appreciated. We've worked together productively on many occasions, and we have done so with a great deal of mutual trust, which has grown over the years and which I can't really adequately express how much I appreciate. You guided the town through the pandemic, through the fire that destroyed our fire station, recent flooding, a lot more, as we've already talked about. Many times I've seen you draw on your deep professional understanding about how government works and your sense of knowledge of how Randolph works to benefit the town. Our government here, this little government, is surprisingly complicated, something that I've learned over my years on the select board. Trini has helped us work through budgets, unions, personnel issues, insurance issues, elections, heavy equipment, much more. That is like the things I come up with just off the top of my head in about 2 seconds. You help us get through all of that stuff on many occasions. And then the thing which I always tell people when they ask what it is like to be on the select board is that you consistently ask important questions that nobody else thinks to ask. And I have seen you many, many times over the years come up with creative suggestions to help us get through some thorny problems. And we saw some of that tonight on the map. Going into Shaw's, like exactly the kind of thing that you have done so many times over the years. And we've already noted how much time you have put into being a servant of this town. I have been astonished at the amount of effort and time that you've dedicated to this place. Deeply underappreciated by too many people. Gone way beyond the call of duty. I know that anytime I've needed to contact you on an issue, I hear back from you quickly. The answer is always yes. When can we talk? And you've been extremely generous with your time. You know, as select board members, we do get paid Most people who get on the board are surprised to find out that it is actually a paying gig. We get $1,000 a year. But most people are not surprised to find out that nobody gets on the select board for the money. They're essentially volunteers. And I guess I don't know this for a fact, but I very strongly suspect that when we talk about local volunteers for our municipality, that Trini is our #1 volunteer over at least the last decade and perhaps much longer. And without anybody competing for that role is my strong suspicion.
Could be.
And being
Yeah.
being a select board member is mostly thankless. You tend to hear from people when things are going wrong. You don't hear when things are going right, and that's human nature. And it took me a little while to get used to that being on the board, but it's okay. That's just the way we're all wired. But that means that we don't thank the folks who are doing good work for us often enough, and would like to say thank you for all you've done.
Well, it's been a good run.
Yeah.
So somebody else's turn. But I have told you all, I'm only a phone call away. I'll help you for a while.
But we're not gonna forget that.
There are the, you're 100% right. Most people don't understand what it takes in a town. There are so many nuances and so many laws that impact stuff and so many things you have to do a certain way or you violate something or whatnot. And until you live it, you don't know. And, I've got 36 years in with the state. So if I haven't learned government yet, I've got a serious problem. But I've also transitioned quite a few town managers.
I was thinking about that too when you were listing. I was like, how many town managers? 4? 4 different town managers?
3, right?
These 3.
No, Adolfo.
We let we contracted our police department for the Orange County Sheriff, and one election showed us what a bad decision that was.
Then we started one in 6 weeks.
Yeah,
As one does.
6 weeks. Task force pulls together and crazy.
I also really enjoyed my very first meeting, which was less than 48 hours after. And the room was full, Zoom was full, the police budget failed. And not knowing anything behind the scenes conversations that led up to this, you looked over and said, Stephanie and Erica, do you have anything to add? Just threw me right in the deep end.
Some people learn to swim the best that way.
For like a year later, but yeah, it was a good starting point of just, this is where it's at. And I've appreciated all of the help and guidance and support. And like Larry said, despite some recent conversations out there, we don't all agree all the time. But we always have really great community discussions that lead us almost always to 5-0 vote, although sometimes help us with that, but usually it's because of your leadership that we can have positive conversations and decide on the best path forward.
Thank you. Fun, but we have a couple meetings to finish tonight.
Yes.
Crack a beer. Procedure wise, we go into executive session, then do the liquor board and then
Yep.
do it that way.
Well, procedure wise, what you do is go into executive session, we'll come back out, you'll take up the tabled item if you want to take action on the ground with it. And then adjourn the regular meeting, open the liquor control meeting, do your business. Probably. I think that's all right.
You'll be home at 11.
What's the statute for?
First one's the finding that it's necessary and prudent and that premature general public knowledge place the town at a disadvantage.
So move. So. We have a second on the floor.
Molly,
Second.
Oh, yeah, Molly second, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Now it's your one where you list the reasons, 1 VSA 313A1A contracts, A1E with pending probable litigation, and A3